Yeah. Well, all right. Like you always say, welcome, welcome, welcome. Number one sports talk indeed. We ain't like the Falcons, we won't blow the lead. Look, all we talk is who that, who got cut and who back. Rookies and the vets, players you should look at. It's the sports coma, you don't wanna miss it. Got the pre-game party, post-game statistics. Get a visit from Sway, maybe DC or 5. It's the hottest thing smoking, Big Q and the guys. Go to YouTube Live, make sure you subscribe. Interviews inside the Saints locker room high. Talk to Drew, Jordan, Zach, Peyton, New Orleans, who that nation. Best believe when I say we bleed gold and black. Ain't a miracle or rivalry could ever hold us back. No, Beastquake, Bounty Gate, let the truth be told. It's the sports coma, all we know is say Super Bowl. Yeah.
You're listening to the Sports Coma with Big Q and the guys on the PRO Media Network.
Who that family? What's going on, family? How y'all doing? This rainy, very rainy Saturday. What's going on to the family? How y'all doing today? And it's rainy Saturday. I hope y'all taking it easy. I hope y'all are taking it easy and being very safe out there and careful as well. Welcome to the Saturday edition of the Sports Coma with Big Q and the guys. And I'd like to welcome everybody in my traditional fashion that I've been doing for some times. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You're now rocking with the Sports Coma with Big Q and the guys. And we have intense, entertaining, educating, and enlightening sport talk from your favorite sports family. I'm Big Q if you don't know. This is Sports Coma, live number 123, show number 524. Of 524 episodes, a summation totality of over 5 years worth of work dealing with the Sports Coma. And it's all because of all the support that you guys give. So much love to the great Saints think tank known as the Sports Coma, as a lot of the family members are chiming in the live stream. And traditionally and customarily, you know, I got to give shouts out to all the family members as well. Who that to Scoob, do it too. What up, Scoob, my brother from another mother? Tramal, what you say there, Tramal? Who that to you? 985J in the building. Who that to you, baby? Brandon Cormier, who that to you, Brandon? Good to see you. Joshua Hoover in the building. What up, Josh? How you doing, family? Who else we got? Jason King. Jason, who that to you? Jay says, what up, Reverend Q? Reverend Q. He might say some words today. You never know. Tori Shepard Sr., who that to you? Tori, good to see you in the chat family as well. Kevin McKnight, who that to you? Superstar Louisiana boy, who that to you as well. Derek Lockett, who that to you? Derek, good to see you in the stream as well. My friend William Musgrove, who that to you? Thank you, William, as well. Hit the like button. Thank you, Will. Let's see who else we got here. Oh, man, Jeffrey Dyson. What up, Jeffrey? How you doing? And who that to you as well? My friend Charles Mayfield. Who that to you, Charles? I see your family. Much love to you. Eddie Evans. What up, Eddie? And who that to you? Said, I just wanted to shout out. Love who that family. Steady Eddie Evans, all the way from Jonesboro, Louisiana. Love y'all all. Be safe. Thank you Eddie, much love to you. And who that to you? Thank you for that great and warm sentiment. Crass 4, who that to you, Crass? He says, who that best sports show on the net? Thank you, Crass. Appreciate your donation and the comment, family. Much love to you. And in this episode of the Sports Coma, we have a special guest chiming in on the show as well. And he's an honorary Great Saints Think Tank family member, I like to call him. And he's more than welcome to come on anytime because he is a very good dude with a lot of great depth on just life, period, sports in general. Mr. Bob Rose from Sports Illustrated, from the Saints News Network, all the good people over there putting in great work. And I always reference articles from Bob Rose and Kyle Mosley and the rest of the guys over there doing excellent work. So I don't want to forget them as well in the Saints News Network and the Canal Street Chronicles. If you know anything about Saints news and information, all of those are tremendous Saints resources. And we have a really good person here to talk it. Who that to you, Shedrick? I see your family in the building as well. And we're going to bring Mr. Rose in the place. Mr. Rose, how you doing today, sir?
I am very, very good. You're making me blush with that introduction now, and hoping I can live up to the legend. But it is for sure, and my absolute pleasure to be joining all you guys. Thank you so much for your support on behalf of myself and everybody at SI.com and the Saints News Network. You guys are why we do this, and it's a lot of fun to cover our favorite team. For sure, but the NFL in general, and certainly an honor and a privilege anytime I come on with you.
Well, I thank you there, Bob. And man, like I said, we love what you do. We love what y'all guys are putting in working over there, man. And it's just all love all the way around in this giant Saints family, friend. And of course, what we want to talk about on today's show is we're going to cover a lot of Saints news. Now, the last time we had you on, it was prior to the free agency cycle, I want to say, and everything getting started. And we were doing a lot of speculating, a really good speculating, talking about what the Saints are going to do. And they did a lot of surprising things in free agency as well as the draft that continued to move on. So let's start off with the free agency, Bob. What was your thought process on free agency? What did you like and didn't like from the Saints free agency that just passed?
Generally speaking, I absolutely love what Sean Payton and crew did in keeping such a talented core intact. And people forget, and I know people came down on them, for lack of splashy signings out on the market and things like that. Look, this is a team that went 13-3, 13-3, and 11-5 in the last 3 seasons. So I think they're doing a pretty darn good job. Coach Payton recognized that. The nucleus of this team is still incredibly young and growing together. And cohesion means so much in the NFL. And the Saints set off into the offseason with a clear goal of keeping as much of that nucleus intact as they could, and I thought they did an absolutely spectacular job. And in addition, with most of the NFL teams being extremely limited in their OTAs and mini camps, if they're going to be able to pull them off at all, the fact that the Saints don't have a lot of players now coming in, free agent wise, that are going to have to learn a whole new system, a whole new terminology, and a whole new way of doing stuff by their coaching staff, that says a lot. And I think that puts New Orleans ahead of the curve, against most of the rest of the teams throughout the NFL. And just it goes to show you that. That Payton just has confidence in everybody in that locker room and all the way up through the front office. Now, as far as the player signings are concerned, they definitely checked off the boxes of what the must needs. They recognized that they finally recognized that they needed a bona fide number 2 threat at wide receiver to go opposite Michael Thomas. And they did so in a big way in bringing in Emmanuel Sanders. Manny Sanders, I've been a fan of his since his rookie year with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's going to threaten the defense from outside position or the slot. He's a terrific route runner. They can still, even at 33 years old, still take the top off of a defense. And that's going to, Mike Thomas is still going to be your number 1 threat, as he should be. But Sanders is going to make teams pay for paying a little bit too much attention to old number 13 on that other side. And his addition, it just makes this New Orleans offense that much stronger. And one of the few free agency losses that the team suffered, they were not able to re-sign Von Bell. And I'm a big fan of Vaughn, and I'm, wish him all the luck in Cincinnati, which is where he ultimately signed. But the Saints, just like they did last year when it became apparent that they weren't going to be able to retain Mark Ingram, they moved quickly and re-signing because he came back to where it all started, bringing back safety Malcolm Jenkins. Jenkins is going to be an extra defensive coach on the field. He still plays at a very high level. He might not be the athlete that Von Bell is at the safety position, but he still has good range, excellent instincts, and can play up in the box with any safety in the NFL. So again, even though Malcolm Jenkins came from Philadelphia, where he's been the last few years, he is very familiar with Sean Payton and Dennis Allen and the Saints' way of doing things. So again, they stayed along that philosophy of we don't want to change too much of what we're doing because of the lack of off-season activities. And Malcolm Jenkins might not be the athlete that Von Bell is, and he's certainly, I think he's about 6 or 7 years older, but he's still playing at a high level. And I said it a minute ago, he is like an extra coach that's going to help out those younger defensive backs, the Marshawn Lattimores and Chauncey Gardner-Johnsons, et cetera. He is a big-time addition that I think has gone a little bit under the radar throughout league circles as far as what the Saints have been able to do in bringing back Malcolm Jenkins.
Yeah, I absolutely love the Malcolm Jenkins signing, and I agree with you, Bob. I mean, he is a little longer in the tooth than what Von Bell is, but boy, does he really bring that expertise, that experience, and the fact that he's just not one of those old fading away type veterans. He's a guy that's familiar with the culture of the Saints. He had success when he was here. He went to Philadelphia and was severely impactful for that Philadelphia defense. He just didn't sit back there and collect a check. He played a real pivotal part in helping that team win the Super Bowl up there. And he had 2 max contracts with the Eagles, and the Eagles, the fans loved him. They hated seeing him leave. But, I thought it was a real good move by the Saints because they went to Von. Von just chose not to accept what the Saints were offering, or felt like he was going to get a better deal on free agency. And the Saints, all just after moving, just went automatically to Malcolm Jenkins. And of course, remember we talked about, and you made mention of it, I think, at one time, that Malcolm Jenkins was a mistake that Sean Payton felt like he made a mistake by getting rid of him some time ago. Well, he rectified that. And I said on a previous show, Bob, is the fact that I thought that Malcolm Jenkins will have a similar impact to the Saints defense like Darren Sharper did that first year, not the second year, but that first year. I want to be specific here, but that first year that Sharper had his impact on the field, we just gonna keep it to the field. We ain't talk about nothing else, but his impact to the field. What do you think about that, Bob? Because I really do feel like that having that vision, and then of course what he'll do with Marcus Williams as a playing mate next to him, and like you say, he's a coach on the field. You think that he'll bring that same impactfulness that Sharper did in that first year with the Saints?
Yeah, I think that is a pretty good call out. Malcolm Jenkins has never been the ball hawk that Darren Sharper was. I mean, as far as football abilities go, Sharper was such an outstanding free safety. Jenkins will be able to give you a little bit more of that traditional strong safety look, where you can move him around. He's a terrific run defender. But you're right. He can get inside, hopefully, he can get inside the psyche of Marcus Williams because, good old 43, he has played some very, very good football during his 3 years with the Saints, but he has had some crippling brain freezes
oh my goodness.
At crucial times, and that's where I think a guy with Jenkins' experience instincts and vision both on and off of the football field can do nothing but help Marcus Williams. So, yeah, I think and Darren Sharper, people forget, Darren Sharper was a heck of a leader for that Saints secondary on the football field, and made all those younger defensive backs much better. So, yeah, I absolutely think that Malcolm Jenkins can have that same sort of impact on Marcus Williams and those other younger defensive backs.
Yeah, and the Jenkins boys, I mean, the Jenkins guys, whether that's Malcolm or Janoris, I mean, they are, we had the William brothers, of course, with Marcus Williams and PJ Williams, not as in, it's kind of up and down, but the Jenkins boys, the Jenkins brothers of Janoris and Malcolm, that's huge because, of course, Janoris reworks his deal. He stays for to a multiple year deal. You have Jenkins there for a multiple year. And I just love the fact how impactful both of those guys are with Janoris, with the Marshawn Lattimore and the other young DBs. And then you turn around and look at what guys like Malcolm Jenkins could do for, like you mentioned, Marcus Williams or Saquon Hampton or guys like that. And plus DJ Swearinger is another really excellent move that I liked too, having those veteran guys back there to kind of mentor the young guys, the JT Grays and the rest of these young DBs that we have, the undrafted guys and the rest. Let's move into the Saints draft recap, Bob. Of course, the Saints had some surprises, to say the least. A lot of people didn't expect the Saints to take a center with the first pick. A lot of people thought the Saints would do something defensively. Maybe wide receiver wise, there were a couple of really excellent wide receivers on the board, but Sean Payton and the Brass decided to go center with the pick. And of course, you have Bourne, the linebacker, who I like a lot, and then Troutman, the really athletic jewel of a tight end that will be special for the Saints. And then of course, the 7th-round draft pick utility guy, quarterback / whatever, everyday man. What was your thought process? And of course, the undrafted guys that kind of we put it together, the draft and undrafted guys together. I like to do it to get a kind of brief look at everything. What was your thought process on the Saints draft and undrafted players they picked up this year?
We'll start with that first pick. Cesar Ruiz, the interior lineman from Michigan. Like a lot of people, I thought that the Saints would go with a wide receiver in the first round, or a cornerback, or maybe even one of those top 2 linebackers available, Kenneth Murray or Patrick Queen. Leave it to Sean Payton to throw us a curveball. He usually does. But in hindsight, if you read between the lines at what Coach Payton was saying immediately after the season, he was not happy with the performance of his offensive line, specifically interior. And that interior line, they got ate up in that Minnesota Vikings playoff loss. Now, they re-signed Andrus Peat, which was an underrated move in free agency, kept the cohesion of that offensive line together. But you look at the other side, Larry Warford, and I know we'll get into Warford in a minute. What the draft pick of Ruiz did, it made the Saints offensive line younger, much more athletic, much more versatile, and maybe most importantly, every one of those 5 projected starters are now under contract for at least the next 4 years. So I guess the Ruiz pick shouldn't have been a surprise to us, and he was the top, one of, if not the top, interior lineman available in the draft. We all know Coach Payton and Mickey Loomis's history. Once they identify a player that they fall in love with, they don't care what the critics say. They will take him. Payton said right after the draft, we drafted Ruiz to play sooner rather than later. One of the many reasons why the recent Warford release wasn't a surprise. So I think, I know Ruiz played the majority of his snaps at center at Michigan, and of course the Saints already have a terrific one in Eric McCoy. But you can expect both of those guys to be in the starting lineup. One of them are going to move into Warford's right guard spot. And it's anybody's guess as far as who. They're both going to be given chances at center and guard to see how they interchange with each other and the rest of that line. But I think Ruiz as a prospect, he is extremely athletic. He has good strength at the point of attack, and he's a terrific technician. Really, really smart guy too. So he's going to be able to step in and contribute right away as a rookie, as you would expect your first-round pick to do. Excuse me. Zach Bond, the linebacker that they drafted in the third round. When I was doing my draft profiles, I fell in love with Bond. Watching his film, and I expected him to go much earlier than he actually did. He had a first-round grade by most scouts, and I personally expected him to slide into the early to midpoint of the second round, but I wouldn't have been at all upset if the Saints would have spent their first-round pick on Zach Bond, which just tells you the value that they got with that kid in the third round at pick 74 overall, I believe. Very similar thing happened to Chauncey Gardner-Johnson last year. A lot of people, myself included, had Gardner-Johnson coming off the board in the second round, and he's still there in the early fourth round. And then, the Saints saw him on the board like they did with Bond, and moved quickly to swing a trade and go up and get him. So I think Bond's going to take a little bit of time to develop. As far as traditional linebacker play is concerned, he's an outstanding run defender with very, very good athleticism. He just wasn't used in pass coverage very much at Wisconsin. So he has to get a more instinctual feel for zones, which is zone coverage, which is just going to come out of repetition. But athletically, he'll be able to match up with his running backs coming out of the backfield, or tight ends, most tight ends throughout the league, even down the field. And Bond, hopefully, if Kiko Alonso and Alex Anzalone come back and stay healthy, they'll be able to bring Bond a little bit more slowly along. He's the kind of guy that I would expect to get increased snaps as the season progresses, as he gets a better feel for the defense. But Saints fans, if you haven't watched Bond's Wisconsin film, you're in for a treat, because this is a player. He's a hard-nosed defender, very traditional values, but again, very good athletic ability, with good pass rushing ability if they use him in passing situations too, which is what Wisconsin usually used him in as a stand-up defensive end. And then Adam Troutman, the tight end from Dayton that you mentioned. I love that pick. He was my second favorite tight end available in the draft. And while a lot of people expected the Saints to draft a wide receiver at some point, myself included, Peyton identified Troutman as a playmaking pass catcher. So when you view it like that, it doesn't really matter what position the player plays, because he's just going to be another target, another toy for Sean Payton, and another weapon for Drew Brees. Troutman is a very, very good route runner with excellent athletic ability and good size. He's going to present the kind of matchup problems that Jared Cook, the Saints' current starting tight end, gives to defenses. There's not too many safeties or defensive backs that can match up physically with either Troutman or Cook. And if you put a linebacker on either tight end, that's going to be an athletic advantage to Troutman, as it is with Cook. And people realize, and again, we should have read between the lines, coming into the draft, because Jared Cook, who already carries a pretty high salary cap number, his contract will be expiring at the end of the season.
Right.
So that could potentially, the cards should potentially line up for Troutman to be your unquestioned number one tight end going into 2021. But again, I think the Saints are going to use him quite a bit. Drew Brees has never had the luxury of a double tight end formation where both tight ends were bona fide threats as pass catchers. Well, he's going to now, which is going to allow the Saints to give that many, so many more looks and so many more elements to throw at an opposing defense. So I love that Troutman pick. I realize they gave up a lot to go get him. They gave up at the time all three of their day 3 draft selections. But again, when you're a team as deep and talented as the Saints are, you can't afford to play around like that. Realizing that we're just looking for depth at this point. But in Troutman, they identified a guy that they love and that they think will be a fit right away. And as the Saints are apt to do, they moved heaven and earth to go get him. And then you mentioned Tommy Stevens. I think everybody expected the Saints to trade back at some point into day 3 to grab a player or two, and I certainly did. I was a bit surprised at who it ended up being, but Tommy Stevens. I followed his career early on at Penn State, being a Nittany Lions fan myself. As a quarterback, no, he's not going to be the successor to Drew Brees, nor would you expect a 7th-round draft pick to be. But they threw around the name Taysom Hill quite a bit upon that draft selection, and that's something that Stevens almost immediately bought into as well. Stevens, just to get on the field at Penn State before he made the decision to transfer to Mississippi State for his senior year, he came to the coaches and he volunteered, hey, put me on special teams, put me at wide receiver, at tight end, and he did play all those. He's not the athlete that Taysom is, but that's no disrespect on Tommy Stevens. He is still one whale of an athlete. And folks realize this, it's a 7th-round pick. I'm not going to call it a throwaway pick per se, but if it doesn't pan out, you expect your round 1, round 2, round 3 draft choices, to be heavy contributors sooner rather than later. 6th, 7th round guy, a late day 3 pick guy, you hope that you hit the nail on the head, and it comes down to scouting department and luck when it comes to that kind of thing. But if Tommy Stevens doesn't turn out to be the next Taysom Hill, you just shrug your shoulders and you move on in life. But I do love Stevens' attitude, and he does have some nice athletic ability. And since they've had the success they've had with Taysom Hill, they know how to approach Tommy Stevens, and we're going to see him in some different roles this preseason.
Yeah, I was paying attention to Tommy Stevens, Bob, and I remember him from this guy was kicking. He was doing kicking duties too, wasn't he?
Yes,
and
yes. I volunteered
that.
for special teams. You're right.
Mm-hmm. But
we
go ahead.
Sorry,
Bob.
go ahead.
No, buddy, go ahead.
We have seen late round draft picks for New Orleans and other teams, as well as undrafted free agents. We have seen them, really carve out a role for themselves by doing so on preseason and exhibition game special teams play. And Stevens is a hard-nosed kid. He's not a small athlete either. So he's certainly going to be given an opportunity on those gunner units to go down and knock some heads, and it's going to be fun to watch. He's a fun kid to watch play.
Yeah, I was like I went back, and when I remember Stevens, because of Mississippi State, he spent some time now. It's like, Mississippi State quarterback, what is this? And I was like, obviously, I said, nah, this guy is not Drew's successor. But, I realized that he is a utility guy that can do a great deal of different things. And Sean Payton absolutely covets that. But you made mention about Ruiz. Ruiz, to me, now, from a technique standpoint, he does not remind me of LaCharles Bentley, but the attitude does. It's just when I put the tape on and watch how he plays at that center position, almost like he's mad at anybody he's in front, like they said something bad about the man's mama or something. That's how he plays football, with a mean attitude, but under control. Not like a reckless, emotional, but a mean, focused, I'm serious mentality when he plays. And I absolutely love that. And that reminded me so much of the great LaCharles Bentley, who was one of the best centers the Saints ever had. And I think that this kid could live up to that. I really do think that he has the potential to really get to that level. And then, of course, moving McCoy to the guard position, I love that too. A lot of people had questions whether or not McCoy can handle the guard position. I absolutely believe that he can handle the guard position. I'm just going to say that I think he will do a hell of a job at it. And I'm just really loving the Saints offensive line. Of course, we got Teron Armstead up there, got a couple of years left on his deal, but it's the future of the Saints line is before you. And of course, you mentioned Zach Bowen. And a lot of the great Saints think tank family members out there will speak to the fact that we were looking at the pass rush element, Bob. And before we get into that, I'll ask you that a little later. But he does fit that situational pass rush job. if Davenport or if you want to move him in there to play it. And I'm thinking that's a portion of why Sean did that, because the guy can line up on the line and get after the quarterback. I mean, he's 6'2", and I've seen various films where he was able to bend up under these big old 6'5", 6'7" offensive linemen. He just bends right up under him, and once he gets around him, it's like he has a rocket on his back. He's going to get the quarterback. The quarterback will see him and try to turn the other way. Too late. I got you. I mean, he's fantastic. He has that athleticism. And, of course, like you said, I do like the tight end Troutman as well. And I agree with you that in 2021, he's the future tight end. And I love your analogy about a pass catcher. If you looking at a guy to be a wide receiver, you can kind of split this guy wide if you need him, or put him on the line. You could do a lot of things with this kid. Mixed with Jared Cook out there. So, I mean, and then you know what the thing is, I was preaching this before the draft, and I was saying to myself, I would love to see the Saints go back to those 3 tight end packages that we had so much success with. And now we have 3 really good. You got Cook there, you have Hill there, who was a good pass catcher and to develop into a hell of a blocker as well. And then you have Troutman there. So I'm excited about the tight end room. And I think the tight end room is back, and it brings a certain aspect of the playbook that was missing for some time. So it feel good to see the fact that they have added that. Now, moving on, Bob, what is your thought process? Now, you covered the drafted guys. What is your take on the undrafted guys? Who are your favorite and least favorite of the undrafted guys that the Saints were able to pick up this year?
First off, you've got to give credit to the New Orleans Saints organization, particularly during the Sean Payton era, because I don't think we've seen any other franchise have as much success with undrafted free agents as the Saints have had. So there's certainly reason to get excited for these guys. We had a chance to sit in on interviews, post-draft interviews with a number of them, and they have chips on their shoulder because they have not they were not drafted. So they're going to come into camp hungry and with something to prove. The Saints will start with wide receivers since we were just talking pass catchers. They brought in Marquez Callaway from Tennessee and Juwan Johnson from Oregon. Now, Callaway is a kid that a lot of people are high on because of his ability to take the top off of a defense. And he does have great downfield ball skills. He's not a 4.2, 4.3 guy, but he does have the speed to beat you deep. He's about a mid 4.5 guy with great ball skills down the field. He can locate that ball no matter how tight the coverage is. His production wasn't better than it was because of some quarterback problems at Tennessee. Callaway is going to have to learn how to run the underneath routes a little bit more precisely, but he's going to be given opportunities. And then on the opposite end of that spectrum, Juwan Johnson is a very physical underneath route runner. He's also a 4.5, 4.6 guy, so he has the speed to beat you deep, but he made his bones off of more physical routes underneath. Now, he had some pass catching and pass dropping problems at Penn State prior to his transfer to Oregon, which actually happened. Juwan kind of fell out of favor with Coach Franklin out there at Penn State. Franklin wanted to go with smaller receivers, more jitterbug type guys like KJ Hamler, the guy that was drafted in the 2nd or 3rd round this year. And Juwan just didn't fit that profile. But then he moved on to Oregon, and his drop percentage decreased, considerably. And I think that could be a direct correlation, with playing with a guy like Justin Herbert, who of course was drafted so highly, this year as well. But Johnson has prototype Saints receiver written all over him. I've heard some comparisons to Marcus Colston. Wow. Those are some heavy shoes to fill. But Juwan is an outstanding blocker as well. So I've also heard some comparisons to Brandon Coleman, which personally I think is probably a little bit more accurate, especially at this stage of Johnson's career, having not yet seen an NFL snap. But Brandon was coming along pretty nicely as an NFL receiver, as an undrafted free agent, mind you, before injuries cut his career short. So Callaway does have some deep speed, and it certainly brings a deep threat to him. I personally think that Juwan Johnson is a little bit more rounded receiver, but again, they're both going to be given chances because after Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders, those other receiver spots are truly up for grabs. So I expect both of those young men to be in the thick of the receiver competition. And the Saints have also been able to wisely stash receivers on the practice squad in recent seasons for developmental purposes. So even if Callaway or Johnson does not make the final roster, and it's an uphill struggle for any undrafted free agent, I'd expect at this stage with their skill level, I'd expect at least one of them to be stashed on the practice squad. You know who I really like, though? The running back they got out of Notre Dame, Tony Jones Jr.
Yeah.
We mentioned how much success Peyton and crew have had with undrafted free agents. That's especially true at the running back position.
Right.
Everybody knows about Pierre Thomas, of course, one of my all-time favorite Saint players. But they also had Chris Ivory, Kyrie Robinson, and Travaris Cadet that made significant contributions to this offense. And Tony Jones reminds me a little bit when I watch him run of Chris Ivory. He's a real hard charger between the tackles with a decent burst in the open field. One of the reasons that Jones wasn't drafted is because he never really showed much in the way of pass catching ability, receiving ability out of the backfield with the Fighting Irish. So he's going to have to show his Saints coaches that he can be a viable threat out of the backfield, even if it's just on check down passes where he can make something happen in the open field. And Jones, for his size, he's about 5'10", 220, 225 pounds. Like I said, he's a battering ram between the tackles, but it looks to me at times like he channels his inner Barry Sanders and tries to get too cute. That's not his game. You just need to give that young man the football and let him plow forward. And another thing I like, and this is what the coaches are going to love about him too, I said that he's not much of a pass-catching threat. Where he is a viable option in the passing game, though, is his ability to pick up the blitz. He's not only a willing blocker, but he has terrific vision to be able to pick up that free rusher quickly and at least neutralize him long enough to give his quarterback an extra second, which in the NFL, an extra second goes a long way. So I look for Jones to make some noise maybe in preseason, certainly to be in the mix for that number 3 running back job. A couple guys, and we interviewed one guy, Keith Washington, cornerback from West Virginia. I really, really like Keith a lot. Keith Washington and Tino Ellis, a cornerback defensive back out of Maryland. I would love to see one, if not both, of these young men stick. They both have very good versatility as far as being able to step in as a boundary outside cornerback or move over into the slot. They have good size and physicality for the position, and the athleticism necessary to be able to match up with most receivers one-on-one and man coverage, but also good vision and instincts off the ball. In fact, Keith Washington in particular, he showed when he's off the ball, he shows the instincts and range of a free safety. And we know that the Saints defensive coaches love versatility in their players. Washington to be able to give you that. For whatever reason, though, it does seem to be extremely difficult for undrafted rookies to make any kind of an impact in the defensive backfield. So both Ellis and Keith Washington are going to have their work cut out for them. But I love the attitudes that both of them bring to the table. And again, like we said a few minutes ago, they're going to have to make their mark on special teams first. But during the preseason games, assuming they go forth as planned, obviously, they're going to have opportunities to make plays in the defensive backfield, and they're going to have to take advantage of them. Another guy, and there's a lot of people that love Joe Bocci, the linebacker out of Michigan State. Bocci is an outstanding run defender, and he played mostly interior linebacker for the Spartans in college. But he does have nice play recognition and good natural instincts for the game. The thing I don't like about him, though, he's kind of a liability in coverage, in my opinion. When you drop him into zones, he knows what he sees and can break it down okay. But that's going to be an opponent's advantage if he's matched up with their tight end and man coverage. So he's going to have to prove me wrong. Heck with me, he's going to have to prove the coaches wrong to make an impact. But that Saints linebacking core is a little bit thin after the starters, even with the draft pick of Bond. So Bocce will have an opportunity. And we saw Caden Ellis, a 7th-round pick last year. He was on the active roster going into the season and probably would have played a fairly significant number of snaps. Caden would have, if he wouldn't have wrecked his knee in the third or fourth game. So again, Bocce will have that same kind of opportunity. And there's 2 guys along the defensive line. Gus Cumberlander, from Oregon. He's a big, imposing pass rushing presence that was just plagued by injuries throughout his Oregon career. But he does have nice strength along the edge, and it could be a problem for a lot of offensive tackles. I'll be interested to see what Gus will be able to do. But Malcolm Roach, a defensive tackle out of Texas. Longhorns played him out of position most of his career, at times even as a stand-up linebacker. So that tells you what kind of athleticism that Roach has. But at 6'2", and a nick or two under 300 pounds, he's a natural defensive tackle. We've seen the Saints defensive line hit big in undrafted rookies in the last couple of years with Taylor Stallworth 2 years ago. And then, of course, Shai Tuttle last year. In addition to, the edge position with Carl Granderson. So Roach has some nice pass rushing abilities that he'll be able to apply if they do move him inside to tackle. He's going to have to improve his leverage a little bit. He gets a little bit too high. And allows opposing blockers to get to his knees or kind of cut him down at the point of attack. But he has excellent punch as soon as that ball is snapped. And if he can get under an opposing center or guard's pads, you've won the battle as an interior lineman right there. So Roach has the skills. Like I said, I think he went undrafted because the Longhorns played him out of position. As far as his natural abilities go, but that also goes to show you how coachable this young man is. You want me to go play linebacker, even though I'm built like a defensive tackle? Well, okay, bring him on. So I love his approach to the game too. These guys are going to have uphill climbs to make the roster, not only because of the talent that the Saints have, but again, they're not going to have the benefit of OTAs or mini camps to make a first impression. So they're going to have to hit the ground running. But I like the skill set that a lot of these undrafted guys have.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Bob. I think certainly all opportunistic. I give you that. And then what I really like about them is that they're tall. These are 6'1" guys. They're not smallish guys or like that. No disrespect to the guy of the XFL, but I prefer to have the taller guys out here because you have these really tall wide receivers. You need tall cornerbacks to cover them. I like that. And the Joe Bashie, I kind of call him the poor man's Luke Kuechly. And he is severely limited in terms of his pass production. But boy, does he know what he's looking at. I mean, you look at how he plays the game, and only thing I see when I see Joe Bashie play is I call him, that's a football player right there. That is a football player. So I love that move as well. And I do like Tony Jones Jr., the guy out of Notre Dame. Gold helmet at Notre Dame, gold helmet with the Saints. I mean, just gold all the way to the Super Bowl with the Saints. But I absolutely love that move to get him as well to compete against guys like Dwayne Washington. Of course, they just recently picked up Ty Montgomery as well. Well, I'm itching to get your thoughts on that as well. But what's your thoughts on that, Bob, about the pickup of Montgomery? What do you think he adds to the fray?
It surprised me a little bit, but Ty has a lot of versatility. he had a terrific season with Green Bay in 2016, and into 2017 before injuries started to take a toll on him. But Ty will be able to play both running back and wide receiver for New Orleans, which obviously is a valuable tool for that Sean Payton offense. Let's not make any mistake. He's not going to be the next Alvin Kamara. He's not going to be the next Michael Thomas or Emmanuel Sanders. But Montgomery is a mismatch kind of guy that if you did need to line him up at running back for a game or portions of a game, he'll be able to give you some production if you get your blocking up front, which is the key to everything anyway. But I love Montgomery's hands, both out of the backfield and if he's used out wide. He for a running back position by trade, and I'll use in air quotes now, he has a very extensive route tree. And frankly, I think my gut instinct is that if he makes this Saints team, it's going to be more for his utilization as a pass receiving threat than it is as a runner. But again, if he's on the roster, he's another guy. He's a utility knife kind of guy that you can use him out of the backfield. You can use him as an H-back. You can use him out of the slot as well. So I like the signing, but it did surprise me. It kind of came out of left field.
I'll tell you what, I'm just absolutely blown away by the utility, all the utility that he brings. And then, of course, then you have guys like Montgomery, who we don't know if he'll make the active roster or not, but he does present that interesting utility aspect as well. And it is absolutely amazing. If you throw in some of these other guys like Troutman, who can line up close to the line, or you can spread them out. The same thing with Cook. You have all this diversity, offensively speaking, that they can implement. I mean, it's just hard to. That's just Drew Brees has to be just sitting up there licking his chops at all this talent. And of course, you had the perfect compliment. You covered this when you were talking about the recap early in the show. The fact that you had Emmanuel Sanders as a compliment to him. And then, I mean, it's just, and then Kamara, what he does, and it is just, and then the offensive line is more athletic in my book. You put these young, hungry guys out there. I mean, good grief. And woe unto all of the people that's coming into the Superdome or where we got to go. I'm telling you, the Saints have so much diversity, and we don't know if Montgomery will make the team like we said, but goodness grief. They have so much, just so many different just weapons that hit you with, Bob. I mean, it's just exciting as a Saints man to be able to see all of this happen and say, well, how, if I'm looking at, I know these defensive coordinators are having nightmares, lining up thinking about how they're going to actually game plan the Saints, thinking about taking Mike out, and then you have Sanders there. You got Cook in there. He's healthy. Not to mention, you could throw this Troutman kid out there. There's Alvin Kamara that we forgot to mention. There's so many weapons that the Saints offense, man, I tell you, man, it's a beautiful thing. What you think about that, Bob?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, heck, we're talking about a guy like Ty Montgomery as having an uphill climb just to make the Saints roster. Mm-hmm. That tells you what kind of talent lies in front of him.
Good
and
grief.
We haven't even mentioned Latavius Murray, who I'm a big fan of. Drew Brees has got to be licking his chops. Mm-hmm. Let the critics say whatever they want. Well, the Saints don't have a deep threat. Well, really? Okay. Well, you have Mike Thomas and you have Emmanuel Sanders, at wide receiver, who can run any pattern imaginable. Then you come at me with a double-headed tight end weapon in the athletic wonders of Jared Cook and Troutman, you have Kamara coming out of the backfield who can run patterns as precise as a wide receiver.
Wow.
We don't need to go deep because you guys can't cover everybody that's going to run all these directions.
Exactly.
These guys are.
Exactly. I couldn't have said it any more perfect than that, Bob. And that's the thing about, we got to throw the ball deep. And I do feel that consistently and repetitiously, Drew has a problem pushing the ball down the field. But if you need to take shots down the field, and if he's methodically dinking the ball up the field and he needs to take a 40-yard dagger or stab at it, I think that he can get that off. Now, we're not talking about throwing 10 to 12 deep passes a damn game. 1 or 2 shots down the field or whenever you feel like you need to take it. But, man, I tell you, you're absolutely right. With all of the weapons the Saints have and all of the different looks, I mean, it is absolutely mind-numbing just to see how this offense has been put together. Now, speaking of which, Bob, we mentioned about the nightmares that will be causing defensive coordinators. What's your thought process on the Saints' schedule, 2020 schedule lining up?
There's some marquee matchups for sure, and we'll start with Brady versus Breeze twice. We've only got to see that a handful of times in the last decade and a half in the first place, and now we're going to get to see it twice this year. And the NFL prides itself on their quarterback play, and that's certainly going to come to fruition with the way the Saints schedule plays out, because you not only have Brady twice, you have Aaron Rodgers. You're going to have a rookie quarterback by the name of Justin Herbert coming in.
Yep.
By the way, you have 2 rematches or 2 matches against your former quarterback from last year, Teddy Bridgewater.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy Garoppolo. The usual showdowns with Matt Ryan in Atlanta. Then you have Carson Wentz in Philadelphia and Patrick Mahomes of the Super Bowl champion Chiefs. There's going to be some interesting quarterback duels ahead. You and I both know that football games are won by far more than just the quarterback position.
Right.
And there are some tough teams on the Saints schedule. The only thing that we can take solace in is the fact that the majority of those toughest matchups on paper are going to occur in the Superdome. The one thing I hate that the NFL did to the Saints, and it can only happen to the Saints as far as I'm concerned, 3 straight road games from late November into early December. That's reprehensible, if you ask me.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it was a convenient mistake, and I'm pulling out my air quotes again,
right?
Or whether the NFL just decided, well, the Saints are going to be one of our marquee teams. Let's see if they have the mettle to match up to that, because they're certainly going to be tested. And grant you, those games are at Denver, never an easy place to play.
Right.
At Atlanta, need I say more there? And at Philadelphia in the second week of December, which is a roll of the dice as far as what kind of weather you're going to get.
Yep.
So that's going to test any team. But as we've seen from Sean Payton's crew over the last few years, he has built this team to win under any conditions and in any environment. So as far as whether they play it in the Superdome or the gravel road out in front of my house, I don't think it matters to these guys. And again, they're competitors. They're competitors with, even though they're still on the younger side of being a roster as a whole, they're battle tested with 3 straight playoff appearances. So I highly doubt, I'm quite certain that all of us are making a bigger deal out of the way the schedule plays out than the Saints are in that locker room. But definitely some marquee matchups to get excited about.
Yeah, I agree with you, Bob. I absolutely agree with you wholeheartedly about there's some tough matchups. That 3 straight road games suck. The NFL sucks for that. They did that before. And like you said, and like what Coach Payton did, they built the team to be able to go through these tough stretches and handle business. And we've had a lot of success over the last several seasons of being able to win a large chunk of games, 2 back-to-back 13-3 seasons. And this year, I'm expecting a total as well. I mean, there are some difficult matchups in there. But if you look at how the Saints are constructed and the mindset of the team and what we're dealing with, there should be no reason outside of injuries or something dramatically happening that the team cannot then reach those same lofty expectations that they've had the last several seasons. So we got some difficult games, no doubt. A matchup could be a Super Bowl preview of the Saints in the Kansas City game in the Dome. That will be fantastic. That will be much CTV, of course, the Tom Brady matchup as well. A lot of people speculating on that because of his Tom versus Drew Hall of Fame QB battle in the same the division. So I mean, it's a lot of interesting things. You mentioned the Carolina tooled up a lot. They added a lot of weapons. Their whole damn draft was defensive. I've never seen that before. When a team picked their entire draft as a defensive draft, they were able to get Gross Matos and a few other people over there. Wasn't Brown the big defensive tackle from Auburn? Didn't he get selected by them, Bob? I'm gonna have to check on that.
Yep.
Did he?
Yep.
Oh, see, that's absolutely insane. That big monster over there. You got him there. Then you add Gross Matos, the fantastic pass rusher from the Penn State the Lions. He's over there as well. And the whole draft, so they're trying to do everything they can to put together a contender there. And the Saints going to have to take them down. You know, we can't overlook anybody like we did Atlanta last year. And we have to just handle business like we did and step it up when it comes down to the playoffs. Any prediction on the schedule, Bob? Any prediction? Do you give predictions on the schedule? What's your thought process on win-loss total on the schedule?
Yeah, well, I mean, as long as you don't hold me to it or go out and bet the kids' college fund on any kind of predictions that come out of me.
Okay.
But for all the reasons that you mentioned, all this talent coming back, for New Orleans. Drew Brees is back, still playing at an extremely high level, and Sean Payton is as prepared and innovative a coach as there is in the NFL. At 13-3 is a difficult prediction to make, but I would go in that range. I think my official prediction in an SI.com article a few days ago was 12-4.
Okay.
But I could absolutely see them going 13-3, 14-2, that kind of year, because they have that kind of talent. A, and B, they know how important a bye week and home field advantage is in the playoffs. Now, they haven't been able to fully take advantage of their home field situation in recent years, but they still know how important that is from the 2017 season, missing out on a bye and having to go on the road in the divisional round,
right?
And then having that raw taste in their mouth last year after going 13-3 and still having to play in the first round. So this team has the attitude of, okay, we're just not going to leave anything to doubt this year. We're just going to go out and dominate everybody. Now, you're going to have your off days. You mentioned the Atlanta game last year. That certainly comes to mind. These guys are human. So it's difficult to expect them to play injury-free and at 100% of their capacity all year long. But they're a driven team. And they know what's in front of them. They know how to get there, and they're not taking playoffs for granted. That's what I like about these guys. They don't take any opponent for granted. They don't assume, hey, we're going to win just because we're the New Orleans Saints. They like to dominate people. That's the competitive drive in all of them, right through the coaches. So that's why I like what their approach is going to be to the 2020 season.
I absolutely love it too. The killer instinct aspect of putting teams away and taking care of business. We just need that to translate into the playoff side of it. And then we have a multiple Super Bowl winner. We have to be able to get to that level where we don't have the miscues and we execute and dominate, our individual matchups. We talk about how on the past streams of how the Saints could have ended up winning a lot of these games. You got to, and a lot of the coaches will tell you at the player level, you have to beat and win your individual matchups and dominate as a team and have that mentality that we'll be disciplined enough to not make the miscues and make the tackles. We'll be smart and let the other team make the errors and have the issues. And we're not going to shoot ourselves in the foot by giving turnovers and whatnot. We're going to play the way we're supposed to. It just seems like as of recent, a lot of the playoff football that we've been having has been subpar to the highest levels. And it's just been really a downplay, a drain on the great Saints think tank and the rest of the black and gold universe. You'll see our team dominate in Jordan-esque fashion during the regular season and then ultimately fall flat on their faces when the playoffs come. And we cannot allow this to happen anymore. We have to play above that level of mediocrity. I mean, it's mediocre football. I'm not going to play no games with this mediocre football, no doubt about it. Okay, Bob, what's your thought process on? We had a few cuts here and a couple of signings. We know about Pat Omame and Montgomery being picked up recently. What's your thought process on the Saints making any more cuts? You think any other cuts are looming? What's your perspective on that?
I think that it's possible if they identify a free agent that they're going to need to further to clear a little bit more cap space to bring someone or another couple players in. But releasing Warford cleared up about $8.5 million of cap space. So that by itself is enough to bring in. I don't have the contract details on Ty Montgomery, but I can't imagine it's going to be crippling as far as the salary cap figure goes.
Right.
But there's other guys, and you mentioned right at the onset of the show, Omama bringing in. I was pleasantly surprised at how well he played when he had to step in for Armstead last year.
Yeah, me too.
At left tackle, and he's a guard by trade, so that gives the Saints offensive line an inside-outside option. That they also have by bringing in a couple of the undrafted free agents, by the way, that we didn't talk about a few minutes ago. Right. But in bringing Patrick back, I think that I don't believe it would be surprising if the Saints would choose to move on from Nick Easton even before training camp began. Nick played really well when he stepped in for Andrus Peat for 5 or 6 games at left guard last year. But outside of that, he was inactive. Nick Easton was for 6 or 7 games. Really he couldn't beat out Eric McCoy. Now McCoy was a 2nd-round draft choice, brought in to eventually be the starting center. But Easton never even stood a chance in that matchup. And he carries about a $6 million cap hit on him. Easton does. Now, valuable experience depth is important, especially on the offensive line, and the Saints have had to call upon that in recent years. But again, you bring in a guy like Omame back in, and if they feel as highly about some of these undrafted rookie linemen that they brought in, they could deem a player like Nick Easton expendable if they need to clear up a lot more room for salary cap purposes. My personal feeling is Nick will be given a shot in training camp, but you got to have him on the roster bubble at this point. Outside of that, I don't see any other significant veteran releases coming from this team. They like what they have. Now, I think that there's a few guys that are going to be in for the roster battle of their lives to stick with the team. But I would be surprised if the Saints made any more cuts off of their current roster from any of the top veteran guys anyway.
I mean, I absolutely agree with you. We did the show not too long ago speaking about the fact that Omame signing spells trouble for Nick Easton, who I think there was a knee-jerk reaction by the Saints once when they knew Max Unger wasn't coming back. And, of course, they signed him, being that I guess he was the best they thought they could have at the time. But when, like you mentioned, McCoy was there and they moved up to get him in the draft, it's just been downhill ever since for Easton. He did come in and was serviceable and in some spot duty. But overall, I just don't see them with everybody. You got to look at, everybody that's there, Bob. You got Cameron Tom, he's back. You got Will Clapp. You have, like you mentioned, Omame and a few other guys. They are making basically the teams playing them with canned goods and food stamps, and you have Nick Easton walking around here with $5 million plus. That's just the easy one right there. I don't need the lifeline for that one. But let me ask you this, Bob. We had a question from the chat, man, and are you okay to answer a few calls from the Great Saints Think Tank?
Yeah, of course.
All right. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate you. Bob's a great dude, man. He putting in overtime. The man work all week, and then he working on the weekend. He got the baby back there. The man, he don't stop here. Endless machine.
Yeah,
man.
you hear him?
But this the question from the chat from DLP 2600. He's asking, what is your opinion of the offensive lineman, Big Throckmorton?
I love Throckmorton, and thank you for the question very much. In addition to all the support, is so much appreciated. I love Calvin Throckmorton. I'm absolutely shocked he didn't get drafted. The negative thing about Calvin is he's not much of an athlete. He's not going to beat too many people in a foot race, and he does struggle when he plays at tackle. which he did. He played every offensive line position at Oregon, but he's going to be a little bit of a struggle for him to make it as a tackle because he's going to struggle with those athletic edge rushers. I project Throckmorton more for an interior guy, probably a guard, but he's a mountain of a man who has quick feet, and he's a really good technician. I love his approach to the game. You talked before about Joe Bocci. You look at him and you just realize this man's a football player. That's the way I feel about Calvin Throckmorton as well.
Okay.
Love the versatility he brings to the line. And I dropped the ball when you asked me about undrafted free agents, and I ran down all the skill positions and skipped over the big uglies on the offensive line. But Throckmorton is one of those guys that I really like. And I completely believe that he's going to be in the mix for a final roster spot.
That is big because you got guys on the Throckmorton, there's Stecker, that's there as well, and a few other guys. Really interesting. I was doing my research on these guys when they signed them. I was looking at film, looking up the scouting reports as well. And just looking at the footage and film on some of these guys, the Saints picked up the wide receivers, the defensive backs, the linebackers, the defensive linemen, the O-linemen. The one thing I can say about those O-linemen that the Saints picked up are, boy, are they versatile. There's one of the guys, and I think Throckmorton is the guy, Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, that played every position on the offensive line. Wasn't that Throckmorton or Stecker?
Yep.
That was Throckmorton? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. He played every position, and then the majority of the rest of those guys played either guard or tackle too. So it's really spectacular. And another reason why it spells doom for Nick Eason. So he better spend the money while he can because the scissors are coming. The hammer is coming real soon. All right, family. Appreciate y'all dropping it in. 504-475 live line. We're going to take a few calls because I won't cut Bob loose. He got his baby there, man. He worked all week, and he was kind enough to sit here and come on the Great Saints Think Tank and talk to the family members. That's why we love Bob Rose and the guys at Saints News Network doing terrific things, man, and putting in that extra service and that overtime. 504-475-4482. You can call all questions in the chat for Mr. Bob Rose. We'll take a few questions. We'll take a few calls before we cut the stream off. Now's your opportunity if you want to chime in and give any questions. 504-475-4482, 504-475-4482. Good to see some of the family members in the building. Travis, Daisy, who that to you? I see you in the chat. Antoinette, who that to you? Antoinette, good to see you. Who that to you? Much love to you as well. Throat Cutter in the chat as well. Who that to you? Throat Cutter. Kenny Sutton, DLP 2600. Michael Carter, who that to you? We got a Saints family member from the Philippines joining us in here. Much love to you from the Philippines, chiming in here. And we had Puerto Rico, Philippines, Australia. We had somebody from Iceland a while back. Alaska, they called in, but their phone got cut off. Guess he didn't have good enough service way out there. Michael Carter and the rest of them, 985 Live, all y'all guys in the chat, Inevitable Expertise. Lee Wood is his name. Lee Wood is the person's name. Who that? Saints fan from Louisiana and Manila, Philippines. Big ups to you. The Trilla in Manila. True Louisiana, who that to you? And the rest of the family members, chiming in, Crass, and the rest of y'all. Thank y'all for liking. And if you're not a subscriber, feel free to call as well. Marquise Esters, who that to you as well. Questions from Marquise says, will the Saints make another move? Bob, what you think about that?
Marquise, thank you so much for your question, and it's a great one. Yeah, I do think that the Saints will make another move, and there's a couple spots where I think that they could really bolster their depth by doing so. I would absolutely love to see them bring in another cornerback. I talked before about how much I love Keith Washington and the game of Tino Ellis. But I would just feel more secure with another veteran at corner. And there's some good ones out there. Darqueze Dennard, Drake Kirkpatrick are two former number one draft choices. Logan Ryan, although I think he's about to sign with either the Jets or Miami, I believe. But Dennard or Kirkpatrick, or even Morris Claiborne, who played with the Chiefs last year, Look, you're not going to expect those guys to come in and challenge either Marshawn Lattimore or Janoris Jenkins for those top 2 spots. But answer me this. When an opposing offense attacks you with a multiple receiver formation, as most teams do, how do you feel about P.J. Williams or Patrick Robinson lining up? And I made no secret about the way I feel about either of those players.
Before you even got that one out, I had to laugh at it.
Yeah, that's a BQ.
It terrifies me personally. And the final 2 plays of that Vikings playoff loss are a perfect example. The touchdown play was caught over P.J. Williams, and it was set up by a deep play over Patrick Robinson. And I mentioned a couple cornerbacks. The one I really want to see them bring back is Eli Apple. Apple, again, he knows the system. So that fits along line with what the Saints have done this offseason. I personally would feel a heck of a lot better with a guy like Eli Apple as my number 3 cornerback than P.J. Williams. If you drop P.J. Williams to a 4th spot or move him around, I want him to move P.J. to safety. I've said that since he came into the league, and he replaced Marcus Williams for a game or 2 last year and played terrific football. PJ does not lack football ability. Don't get me wrong. I just don't want to see him in man coverage. I want to see him off the ball or in run support. In both of those, he's an asset to the defense. In man-to-man coverage, he's not. They need a 3rd cornerback, and that's where I see him going. There's a couple interesting edge rushers still out there on the market, and I'm not talking Jadeveon Clowney. They can't afford him. They won't afford him. But a guy like Everson Griffin from the Vikings, he would carry a high price tag. That'd be the kind of guy that you might see them clear out more cap space to do. Jabal Sheard is an excellent pass rusher when he's healthy, or Clay Matthews. Clay's up there in years, definitely on the downside of his career. But a guy like Clay, you bring him in, you're not asking him to play, 15 or 20 snaps. He's going to be on the field for 6 or 8 snaps, and all of them are going to be with the instruction, go bring the quarterback to the ground. So that's where a guy like Clay Matthews can be valuable. And Clay's at the point of his career. He just wants to win. He just wants a ring. So he's going to be hungry on a 1-year prove-it deal. And it also wouldn't surprise me if the Saints brought in another veteran wideout. I know Peyton does not like to bring in outside guys at the receiver position. He likes to develop from within. But as much as we've raved about having Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders in the fold, again, when you're lining up a guy like Traquan Smith as your potential number 3 wide receiver, how confident are you? Traquan hasn't been able to do it in 2 years, not consistently anyway. So if he doesn't step forward, and these other younger guys that are first-year undrafted guys or second-year undrafted guys, that's a lot to expect for them to step forward as a productive number 3 wide receiver in such a short time period. So no, I don't think the Saints are done making moves. I think if they do bring in anybody else, it's going to be on the defensive side. But another receiver wouldn't shock me.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that, Bob. I think you mentioned the wide receivers behind Emmanuel Sanders and Michael Thomas, Traquan Smith, and a bunch of unproven guys doing it. And I thought we had that situation resolved last year when we picked up Matthews, who abruptly retired. So, I mean, it could be another – I definitely think it would be another scenario in which the Saints address several other needs as like they are customarily doing. Okay, we got a call on the line. What's going on, fam? Welcome to the show. Who's calling?
Hey, Q. Just Tramal, Q.
What up, Tramal? How you doing, my friend?
All right. I got a question for Mr. Rose, and then I'm gonna drop back in the chat.
All right.
I want to know, what, is his thoughts on Juwan Johnson from Oregon, and will he make the team?
All right. You're asking about the Juwan Johnson thoughts on
Juwan Johnson. The wide receiver.
Yes.
The undrafted wide receiver. Yeah. I just want to know. I just want to know his thoughts on Juwan Johnson and will he be able to make the roster?
All right.
Thank you so much for the question. Excellent question. I'm a big fan of Juwan Johnson.
I'm dropping back and checking.
He started his career at Penn State. And like I said earlier, I'm a big Nittany Lion fan, so don't judge me for that. But Juwan is a big target, but has good athleticism, and he gives his quarterback an amazing wingspan. He had questionable hands earlier in his career, struggled with some drops at Penn State. But he seems to have cured those drops. If his senior year at Oregon was any indication, and he's a real physical route runner. He needs to run more precise routes, but he has a physical advantage over most cornerbacks. He's about 6'4", 230. Some have suggested that if he bulks up, he could be a serviceable pass catching tight end, and I don't disagree with that assessment at all. But I think. There were some people that compared Juwan because of his stature to Marcus Colston. If you're going to bring comparisons out, I think a more favorable comparison is probably to Brandon Coleman, who made this Saints team as an undrafted guy. I think Juwan Johnson absolutely has a shot to make this receiver roster. I expect the Saints to carry 5 receivers on their active game day roster. We know the first 2 spots are to Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. Actually, I expect the Saints to carry 6 wide receivers if you count the kick returner, Deontay Harris.
Right.
And I think that I hope that Harris is going to be used on more offensive plays this year. Mm-hmm. But we know Peyton likes bigger wideouts. So Juwan Johnson checks off that category. We know Peyton wants his wideouts to be good blockers. Juwan Johnson checks off that category. He checks off the physicality category. I think he's going to have an uphill climb. But if Johnson can impress, and he's going to have to make a mark on special teams like all these undrafted guys. But he played pretty well on special teams at Penn State. I don't know if he was asked to do that at Oregon or not. I didn't do my research on that part. But Juwan Johnson has the skill set that Coach Payton loves in his receivers. So if he can make some plays, catching the ball in traffic, which was a problem earlier in his collegiate career, I absolutely think he stands a very good chance at making this roster.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal talent. Both of those wide receivers are. I actually love how Marquez how he catches the ball when he high points the ball when those guys defensive backs are climbing all over him, Bob. I mean, he gets up there and it's almost like it's a bit of pride. He specializes in high pointing that ball. Cornerbacks draped all over him. He was able to just pull the some gun down, and it's just I just love that. I just love that mentality and watching footage on the big guy as well. We have some phenomenal talent, man, this year, and I just absolutely love the undrafted guys, and then the quality in which we added high on in the draft. Some real splendid pickups, to be honest, which I just absolutely just love what's happening. Scoops wants to know, we got 2 more questions we're going to ask you, Bob. Scoop wants to know how you feel about Saquon Hampton and Deatrick Nichols, the XFL player.
Scoop, thanks for the question and the support. I love Saquon Hampton. I think he has outstanding range at free safety. And he was a day 3 draft pick last year, but he made the Saints active roster. We went down with injury fairly early in the season, maybe even before the end of the preseason. I'm not certain on that. But I think Saquon has a real good chance to stick in that defensive backfield. Love his athleticism and instincts on the deep end. And when he's asked to come up in the box, he's not much of a man-to-man coverage guy. His hips are a little bit too tight, but he will stick his nose in there and give you a fight as a run supporter. But if he's going to make the team, he's going to have to make some plays on the deep end as a free safety. Right. Deatrick Nichols is a guy I'm a big fan of. He's a smaller corner, which Dennis Allen, the Saints defensive coordinator, does prefer his corners to be a little bit bigger and more physical. Nichols won't give you the size. He's only about 5'10", and that's what he's listed at. But he is extremely physical. He loves to get in receivers' faces, and he has something to prove. He was an undrafted guy in 2017 or 18, I believe, with the Arizona Cardinals. And after spending a year on their practice squad, signed on with the XFL, where he was leading the league in interceptions. He had 4 interceptions in a limited season. Now, granted, the XFL is not going to give you the caliber of competition that the NFL does week after week, but Nichols got some confidence under his belt, and he is a very bright young man. We had a chance to interview him right after he signed his contract with the Saints, and I think that he. I love the athleticism that he brings to the position. Love the physicality, and he has good man-to-man coverage skills. The taller receivers are going to be a bit of a problem for him, and he's going to have to show us in preseason that he could deal with the bigger receivers. But if he can do that, I think he stands a real good chance of knocking off a veteran like Patrick Robinson from a roster spot.
Wow. I mean, I watched the footage on him too, Bob. I absolutely love his ferocity. He's a small guy. I guess he has what you call the little big man syndrome or whatever you want to call it, because he has an attitude about him and a mentality about him that I absolutely love. And he played, like you say, plays with an absolute chip on his shoulder. So I think we'll see, man. But I mean, he has the football guy. He has that mentality. I love what he brings. We got a call on the line. What's going on, family? Thank you for calling the Sports Coma. Who's speaking? Hello, you're on air live. All right, they are they cut off. All right, let's keep it moving. Got a question here. Hold on, it was a really good one here from Joshua Hoover. He was asking about this season. He says these questions, Bob, is from Joshua Hoover. He says, Mr. Rose, if they don't allow fans to be in the stadiums. Hold on here. I just clicked it off by mistake. Hold on. I put it back on here. Just a second, family. I got you on the live line right now. Give me a second. Let me read this question. I'll bring you in. Let's see. It says, if they don't allow fans to be in the stadium, how do you see this affecting the Saints' dome field advantage? That's a very fair question.
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you, Joshua. First of all, it'd be a crying shame if the NFL has to go a whole season, without fan attendance, because that's part of what makes this game so great, and it's also part of what makes traveling to the Mercedes. It'll always be the Louisiana Superdome to me. I'm old. But the fans are partly what makes the Superdome such a distinct home field, dome field advantage. Unless this situation gets a lot worse, I can't foresee the NFL going an entire year without fan attendance. But if it gets bad quick, and I know states are starting to open up, I don't personally think that's a good idea. That's another topic for another time. But if a second wave of this hits, and the NFL gets a little bit apprehensive, not apprehensive, if they start to think about people's safety, both player and fan, you might see a situation where they'll say, okay, we're going to go the first 4 games without attendance and see what happens. Because this is a business first, remember, and they're losing out on a lot of money if they play games without attendance. But with any game that's going to be played in an empty Superdome, or empty stadium for that matter, it's absolutely going to affect the Saints' dome field advantage. And unfortunately, they are a talented team, and talent usually will prevail. But the teams aren't going to be nearly as intimidated, because trust me, it's tough to play down on that field when you can't hear what's going on, even from the guy next to you. So that would be an absolute crying shame if the NFL had to put attendance on hiatus.
Yeah, it makes a weird brand of football, and it almost if they're going to simulate crowd noise, then who do you simulate it in favor of? And then all that happens in play, and that's really risky territory. So without the fans in the stands to watch the games and make it all work, very, very unique times we're living in, and just have to think about it. Got one more call on the line. Thank you for calling Sports Coma, family. Who we speaking with?
What you say, Q?
What's going on, Uncle Paulie? Brother Paul on the line. How you doing?
Hey, I couldn't miss this one, brother. I couldn't miss this one.
Okay. Good to have you. Good to finally talk to you, my friend. What's going on? You got a question for Mr. Rose?
I'm glad I could catch. Where you at, Bob?
Say again, Brother Paul.
I said, where Bob at? You still on there?
Yeah, he's here.
I just wanted to get his thoughts on the Saints secondary. They got to do something to stop putting Marcus Williams back there losing game after game after game. So I just wanted his thoughts about who he thinks the final people are. I know Malcolm Jenkins being there is going to help it out a lot, but he can't do it by himself. So I just wanted his thoughts on who he thinks is going to be the final people in the secondary, and can the secondary, get more interceptions, knock the ball down, and stop making critical mistakes in critical times in the game.
Paul, thank you so much for your question, and I think that's the question that all of us, Saints fans, especially the long-suffering ones, or the ones that have seen the playoff failures over the last couple of years. This secondary as a whole, they do have to make more plays. Whether it's a key pass defense or whether it's turning defense into offense with an interception or an open field fumble strip. And that's something I'm a big fan of Marcus Williams, the player potential. But Williams has had some critical errors at critical times. I mean, the playoff games everybody knows about. But you can even go back to, the final drive that the 49ers had last season in the Superdome, where, Williams once again took a bad tackling angle on the 49ers' George Kittle, allowing a lot of extra yards after the catch that put the 49ers in position to win that game. Williams sometimes, mentally, Williams needs to get out of his own way. I think having a guy like Malcolm Jenkins in his ear on the field is going to help that. But Williams, at the end of the day, the player is still responsible for the player's own mistakes. Williams is in a contract year. A lot of people forget that with, Kamara, Ramczyk, Lattimore, Anzalone, Davis, all those other guys coming up for contract. But Marcus Williams will be a free agent at the end of the year too. He needs to have a big season. He knows he needs to have a big season to cash in on a big payday, whether it's with New Orleans or another team. Everybody knows about the key failures that you pointed out, but everybody also realizes how good Marcus Williams can be. As far as a deep safety, he has better range than anybody that you put out there on the field, and I will take that. I will take that comment to my grave. My issue with Marcus is he takes very, very poor angles when he goes to tackle or make a hit. That's why we've seen the mistakes that we've made. I hope a player like Malcolm Jenkins can be a help to Marcus Williams to help alleviate some of that. But if he continues to make errors like that, or the coaching staff loses confidence in him, don't sleep on a guy like DJ Swearinger. They signed Swearinger last year, and I think after one game they had to put DJ on injury reserve. He hurt a knee or a hamstring or something, but they re-signed DJ this offseason. He has a handful of NFL years of experience. He could play either free or strong safety, but his role in the secondary would probably be as a free safety. He has nice range. One of those two guys, whether it's DJ or Marcus Williams realizing his potential, one of those two guys need to step up and give the Saints a presence, a Darren Sharper player type of presence at the free safety position. By doing that, Malcolm Jenkins can do his thing. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson can do his thing. And you want to talk about a ball hawk, that's a young man that's going to make plays in the secondary. But his biggest asset to the Saints defense in general is being able to move Gardner-Johnson around. If they can't trust the free safety position, then they have to kind of shuffle the players that they have back there, and perhaps play Gardner-Johnson off the ball. Where he would excel, don't get me wrong, but that doesn't fall into what he does best. So a guy like Swearinger or Saquon Hampton, don't sleep on. I talked about liking his abilities as a deep safety. So they have options there if they lose confidence in Marcus Williams. But going into the season, Marcus Williams is their guy there.
Okay, well, see, the reason I brought that up to y'all is because with Tom Brady in the division now, it's going to be air raid 101. And we can't be having this all season. That's why I brought it up.
No, and it's a great point. Not only Tom Brady and those nightmare receivers that Tampa Bay is going to hit you with, but like them or hate them, you have to respect that the weapons that the Atlanta Falcons are going to hit you with too. And those are receivers that are going to make the plays down the field. Not to mention the rematch with the 49ers, rematch with the Vikings as well, where Williams has had some key failures. So again, he has to overcome the own ghost that's in his head right now. He has the physical ability. It's just mentally he's come up short in some key moments.
That's true. And you know what, fellas? Years ago, that would get you cut quick in a heartbeat. Making critical mistakes in big games. They get you cut quick.
Yeah, you better believe it. And like we said, Marcus is a pending free agent. So that young man's playing for a payday too. If there's something that works to the Saints' advantage, it could be that. If that's what it takes for him to turn on that mental light switch in key moments, so be it. I don't care if he takes himself out of the Saints' price range for 2021. I want quality play, snap in and snap out from him now. And they're going to need it. They're going to need somebody to make a difference.
Totally, Bob. I agree. Because the enemy offenses are not going to go away from. They're going to keep throwing on him. You keep making this mistake and keep causing this game, it's going to be a problem. It really is.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And again, you have to love the Saints starting cornerback duo of Marshawn Lattimore and Janoris Jenkins. But we talked a few minutes ago about not feeling a little bit shaky about their depth there. When P.J. Williams, Patrick Robinson, or even the younger guys, Keith Washington or Dietrich Nichols are in the game, opponents are going to target them. And if they're going to target them, A, those players have to make plays, but B, they need the safety support over the top much more so than Lattimore and Janoris is going to need it.
That's true. But yeah, man, that's all, fellas. I enjoy it. But like I say, if there's one Achilles heel on that team, I think it's the secondary. They just haven't shown over the years that they can stop it when it really counts, And you just can't keep doing that if you want to win a Super Bowl,
No, you're exactly right. And we saw that in the Super Bowl itself, with the 49ers giving up some key plays down the field against the Chiefs. Not to mention the way that the Saints might have gone down fighting against the Vikings. But once again, just like against the Rams the year before and the Vikings the year before that, they were not able to make the plays in the secondary when it counted the most.
That's true. But thank y'all so much, man. I appreciate y'all.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
All right, Uncle Paulie, you be good and be safe out there, my friend.
All right, y'all be blessed now.
All right, bye-bye. All right, that was Paul. I appreciate you, Paul, for doing it. And he was there as well. Really great questions there by Uncle Paul. He is the historian of the Great Saints Think there, Bob. He is Paul is the historian. We call him the historian. He's Saints through and through. So really good to see him there. But it's good to. Are you still there with us, Bob?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I'm just I have to grin at any kind of football historian reference because I think number one, the Saints have had a rough history, but it's been colorful. And I consider myself a football historian myself. Yeah. I love talking to getting former players on my show and striking up a conversation with them. Yeah. I realize this generation, a lot of them, no disrespect to younger people that are listening, but a lot of them, they don't go back any more than 10 or 12 years. Mm-hmm. Football's been played a lot longer than that. And I love talking football history with people.
That's right. They got to get in the books and start looking at that film. And a lot of people, truth be told, a lot of those guys weren't really Saints fans. They weren't only Saints fans until the Saints started putting strings of season wins together. Now everybody want to be a Saints fan. Very few of them remember the bad years or want to go back to the bad years. And that's what we got a lot of those in the Great Saint Think Tank family members, that all those guys that used to remember or went back to those bad years. So it's good to get that perspective as well.
Yeah, for sure. And people, I call it the first golden era of Saints football. With Jim Mora, And those teams were a hell of a lot more than just the Dome Patrol. And those great linebackers deserve every bit of fame and fortune that they get. But people forget how good that offense was, how good that defensive line was. The playmakers that they had in the secondary. We had Lonzel Hill on our show the other night. And Lonzel and I just got kind of off topic talking about, like I said, I love talking to former players and memories and things like that. And, in Lonzel's case, I was a kid watching him play. So I shocked him a little bit when he was talking about the 49ers. He brought up a specific pass play as far as his good memory. And he goes, I caught it over number 22 in 1987. Can't remember the guy's name. And I just spit it out. I go, Dwight Hicks. And he looks at me because we were on a video conference call. He looks at me and goes, "You remember that?" I said, "Sadly," I remember all that stuff."
Yeah, number 87. I remember Lonzel Hill, man. He was something else. He had this ball. Was he lightning quick, boy? He was super light. I remember old Lonzel Hill opposite Eric Martin, and that's kind of going back and that's true Saints lore right there. But Bob, I thank you, man. I appreciate you. Us here at the Great Saints Think Tank and the Sports Coma appreciate you taking your time at home. We know you with the family, and you cooking dinner, and I hear the baby in the back, and I appreciate you, man. You working overtime and talking to and enlightening the Great Saints Think Tank once again. And as always, my man, you always more than welcome to come on here and talk Saints anytime you want. I like that the family thanks you and Brother Mosley and the rest of the guys at the Saints News Network and the Sports Illustrated camp, and also the Canal Street Chronicles as well. We appreciate all the work you do, and much love to you.
Well, love right back at you. Love and appreciation. I love you guys, and I do consider you family. We're all family. We've gone through trials and tribulations as sports fans together. Some of us as regular people together too. And it is truly a privilege to come on with you. And yeah, I'll take you up on it. I'll come on anytime.
That's right. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate you, man. And have a good rest of your day, man. And we'll talk to you soon.
Oh, you too, my friend. You stay well, and all your listeners out there, stay safe, healthy, and smart.
Thank you. Same to you, buddy. Who that to you?
Who that?
That's Bob Rose, man. Bob Rose, man. Much love to Bob Rose in the camp. Another spectacular wealth of Saints knowledge and information. And I hope everybody out there, I called the show Saturday Saints Talk. And that's what it is. It's Saturday Saints Talk, and we talking Saints on a Saturday. Now, it was a pretty rainy-ass Saturday, and it's good to be inside, or if you got to travel, you got it on and you listen about some real elevated Saint talk. Now, I appreciate all the callers calling in with the calls, Uncle Paulie and the rest, and also everybody in the chat as well. Who that to you? Big ups to all the family members as well. Donovan Grayson, I see you, Donovan. Michael Carter, 504 Easy, 985 Live. Kevin Conley says, Cube, love the show. I am 46, bro. I recall everything, especially cheap ass Benson. The Dome Patrol was a great coaching job. Sneaky voice, Jim Bean Mora. And also, don't forget Jim Finks. You can't mention cheap ass owner without a cheap ass general manager. Jim Finks, who was able to bring all of that talent together but refused to pay him. Giving them lowballing the hell out of them. Imagine what we could have had if they would have just kept Ricky Jackson and a handful of Sam Mills, all of them. You just let them know. That's how I know all of them just walked. Vaughn Johnson, Sam Mills, Ricky Jackson, all of them just walked. Crass, who that to you, Verlin? Who that to you, Verlin? Good to see you in the chat. Speaking from the Dome of Silence, good to see you, Burke. Your silence and talk in the chat as well. Big ups to you and the family. Lee says, back in the 60s, it was super loud in the stadium. The QB would stand straight up, back away from the line, and go to the referee and say, I can't hear. At that time period, they would pause. That's amazing how loud it was in the Superdome in the 60s. So you know that it is blowing the hell up right now. And well, in the future, hopefully we can get beyond the stuff that's going on in the world right now. And just, it's so tough, man. You know, with trying to carry on some semblance of normalcy with your life and sports, but under the banner of what's going on in the world right now. So it's very, very difficult. But, for right now, if they got to carry on the games without people because they feel like that's the safest way, then, have at it and err on the side of safety because, a lot of stuff going on. Trail had true that to you, says Vance Buck. Can't forget him. Vince Buck. Yeah, I remember Vince Buck and Mike Buck. Boy, Vince Buck and Mike Buck sucked. I mean, I ain't mean around with that, but it just seemed fitting to Troy with that one. All right, Lance Kelly, who that to you? Lance School says I have Ruben Mays jersey. That's what I'm talking about. Kevin says Wayne Martin. I remember Wayne. Wayne was my favorite player. Wayne Martin, Joe Johnson, and the rest of those guys, man, they were fantastic. The Heavy Lunch Bunch. Travis Daisy says Mike Dicker gave all them picks for Ricky Williams. Mike Dicker really thought, and he said this, that he felt all he needed was Ricky Williams, and they will win a Super Bowl. He really believed that. He believed that, and they had freaking Billy Joe Hobart as a starting quarterback who was backed up by Billy Joe Tolliver. That man was absolutely insane. And had he hadn't just not traded everything to get Ricky Williams, who was the second best back according to the draft at that time, who would have been available, had they had not traded those picks, Edgerrin James. So imagine if you would have had Edgerrin James there. But then again, Mike Dicker screwed up all those drafts. He would not take the top players. I remember taking people like Troy Davis, Chris Naoli, and all this foolishness. That guy was freaking insane. He was insane, and he set the organization back 5 years with his stupidity. Jesse Jackson, who that to you? Verlin says, Q, I wish I could take some of the clouds from y'all down there. I don't know why, but it's hot as caramel balls up here in North Carolina. It's raining right now, fam. You can have it. If I could pack it and ship it to you UPS style, I would, brother. And never back to expertise said that used to be Reggie. Scoop says Bill Kuharik. I remember because he was an understudy of Jim Finks. And boy, Kuharik was a smoker because he had like Bucky O'Hara teeth, and then he had like a comb over. He was a weird looking dude, man. Josh Hoover says, Big Q, got to ask you to shout out to my buddy Donnie Grubb. He's a Titans and Bama fan, but roots for the LSU Tigers and Saints, and follows the Saints now that I got him into the Who Dat Nation. All right, thank you, Josh. I'm going to give a shout out to Donnie Grubb. Donnie Grubb, who that to you, Donnie Grubb, because you are rooting. This man is a Titans and Alabama fan who was giving respect to LSU, who's my squad, and the Saints, who's my squad. So I've got to give a shout out to a guy like that. Thank you, Josh, for bringing him over to the Who Dat Nation first and foremost, my friend. And big ups to Donnie Grubb. Who that to you, Donnie? All right, Crass says, giving up all those draft picks for Ricky set the Saints back for years. Terrible draft strategy. Stupidity is what we call it, family. Thank you for that, Crass. Let's see. Scoop says, Uncle Paulie, what about Kuharik? DLP says, Ruben Mays was a very good player before the knee problems as well as Dalton Hilliard. That's the thing. We always had the good running backs. You could throw Gil Finnerty in there. He was a pretty decent speedster when you needed, but Ruben Mays had all type of potential, but the injuries mounted. It's the same with Dalton Hilliard. Dalton Hilliard was one of my favorite all-time running backs. Dalton had big old tree trunks for legs. He was similar, a lot similar, if you come to think of it, to like Pierre Thomas, but Dalton can move around you. He can go through you. He could also kind of catch the ball out the backfield, and he can also run as well. So big ups to both those players. Kevin says his nephew was good. Okay, Lee says you need a hurricane. We got one here now. Neville says I want to get Lorenzo Neal breaking Mario Bates' jaw. Yeah, I remember Lorenzo Neal. The Saints drafted Lorenzo, and he was a pretty decent fullback for the Saints. He was a pretty decent fullback. Ultimately, they got rid of him. He went out west to San Diego. And Mario Bates, man, Mario Bates was a big running back. He had a little wiggle to him, could catch the ball, but never could, get on course like what you wanted him to be. He ended up going out to Arizona. I remember him leaving, signing up with the Cardinals. Walsh, baby, 504 easy. I remember that. What this crap he was. all that, the songs they did on the radio, Walsh, Steve Walsh, baby, and all this nonsense. And Steve Walsh got here and stunk. He sucked. And there was a bunch of stinky, sucky quarterbacks. Steve Walsh was one of them. Heath Schuler was one of them. Billy Joe Holbert was one of them. Billy Joe Tolliver was another one of them. Mike Buck was another one of them. He could do was throw the ball downfield. And there was a bunch of other sucky quarterbacks that I could talk about as well. I actually liked John Forte, during that strike year. I actually liked John Forte. Forte actually played. He had limited ability, but he had heart. I got to give it to Forte. Not Forte. Yeah, John Forte. Yeah, I'm tripping. But anyway, Chuck Muncie. Yeah, how about that, Scoob? Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember Chuck Muncie. Yeah, I remember him. Wade Wilson, another garbage time quarterback. Wade Wilson was at the end of his string here. So was Jim Everett. We had Jim Everett down here. We had Kerry Collins from the Carolina Panthers and the Giants. Kerry Collins came down here and actually he was supposed to be the quarterback under Ditka. Was it Ditka? I want to say it was toward the back end of the Ditka regime with Kerry Collins. But Kerry Collins mixed with Bourbon Street, that wasn't a good format. The man was an alcoholic and he had severe issues. And then you want to talk about people like Danny Awful Waffle, who was a great quarterback at Florida, but goodness, 4K. There you go, DLP. Thank you. John 4K. There you go. I'm sorry. I said fine, Fort, whatever I said. I don't know. Kerry Collins was an alcoholic. Came here. He couldn't get right. But when he left and went to Carolina, he took them to a Super Bowl. They didn't win, but he took them there. But it was just Bourbon Street did not mix with Kerry Collins. Jim Everett was another guy the Saints got here. Didn't work out. And they would get these older quarterbacks with all that miles on them trying to hit on them, and it just didn't work. But they had a guy named Jake Delhomme who they chose to release as opposed to keep because it was between him and Aaron Brooks once Jeff Blake got out the way. Jeff Blake was another good quarterback that I liked who couldn't stay healthy. He was balling that year until he got hurt, lost his job due to injury, which you're not supposed to do. That's old school logic anyway. And ultimately, they brought in Aaron Brooks, and then the rest was the rest. Jake Delhomme went to Carolina and punished the Saints every year after that. He punished them every year. Even took Carolina to the Super Bowl. He was, and it wasn't all about him, but he didn't get in the way of the team. And Jake Delhomme showed you that what he could do. So, I remember all that, man. There's just not a lot of great stuff in there, but it is what it is. Yeah, I remember him, Crass. I remember Ray Zellis, the running back that came from Notre Dame, Ray Zellis. I remember Ray Zellis. I remember him. He had a lot of potential. It just didn't work. Sport Talk 365 said he went to the Giants. Vodka Collins, yep. John 4K. Yeah, Tori, I got you. Who that to you, Tori? John 4K. What I said? John Fournette? Was that what I said? I screwed all that up. Donald Woods Jr. And yep, I got you, Donald. Who that to you? Trail says the worst to Jonathan Sullivan. Then we traded the first round pick. Yeah, Jonathan Sullivan sucked. He was terrible. But so was the guy from USC. He stunk too, but he wasn't worse than Sullivan. Sullivan came from the University of Georgia. Big defensive tackle. First round draft pick. Terrible. Absolute garbage. Absolute garbage. And the guy we got from LSU, Cedric Ellis, was another guy who did more than Sullivan, but he still wasn't what it was supposed to be. So we screwed up a lot of picks and plays, but it's good to see that the Saints are getting it right. Yeah, Wilmot Perry. I remember Paul. See, Paul bringing them all out. Wilmot Perry, big running back / fullback, Wilmot Perry from Stone something or other college or whatever it was. So I'm going back into my Saint recollection. 504 says Mark Rippon. I don't remember Mark Rippon being with the Saints. Was he? DLP says Kerry Collins went to the Giants, turned down his career, and turned his career around. Went to Super Bowl. Was it? Yeah, that's right. That he was drafted by Carolina and went to the Giants, right? Okay, I got that kind of mixed up. Troy Davis, the running back. I remember, Paul. Troy Davis from, from Nebraska. He had 2 back-to-back 2,000-yard season. The Saints that year, they took Troy Davis. They also took quarterback Danny Waffle and Troy Davis in the same draft, because Waffle was the Heisman Trophy winner and Davis was the runner-up, both of which didn't really do too much to help the Saints' prospects of winning. Kevin says Eric Allen. Eric Allen was here with the Saints. Saints gave him a fat contract for a couple of years to play cornerback, and he wasn't good at all. Let's see. Travis says the QB from Florida, Danny Awful Waffle is his name. Inevitable says, yeah, we took Sullivan and we could have had Terrell Suggs. See, we were just crazy. Paul said Cam Cleveland. Cam Cleveland was actually pretty decent. They got Cam Cleveland, who used to play for the Rams. Cleveland was actually a pretty decent tight end. He just was all those injuries. Donald says after the Super Bowl year, he was all right, but not better than my guy Trent Green. Jake wasn't even better than him. Travis says Joe Johnson was solid. Joe Johnson was a good player. Charles Grant was good until after they paid him the money. So it was a bunch of different really talented players the Saints had. They could never totally put it together. Dada says Wilmot Perry from Livingston University. Okay, there you go. Thank you for that, Dada. Appreciate your family for fixing that. 985 J says Craig Haywood. Ironhead Haywood. Loved Ironhead, man. Ironhead used to get hurt. But, man, that's what kind of backs I like. You don't need a full back to block for a guy like that. You got Latavius Murray. Give him the ball and get the hell out the way. You know, guys like him and Blunt that played for the Lions last year, those type of guys, I always keep them on my roster because you don't even need a fullback. You get a guy the ball, get the hell out the way. Yep, Craig Haywood was one of my favorites. His son plays in the league. Torrance Smalls. I remember Torrance Small, Derek, wide receiver. Was he a wide receiver? Yeah, kick returner. Verlin says, Q, I'm having a brain fart. Who that QB we had that played scared and went out and got his helmet spun completely? That was Danny Waffle. Danny Awful Waffle was the one that got his head spin. And I did not do that, family. Remember, I did that quite recently, family. When I went and showed pictures of Danny Waffle with his helmet spent on. Y'all remember that? Let me see if I can pull that up. Saints QB with his helmet spent. This was the pathetic years. When he and the cold part about it, Danny Waffle got his helmet spent around on his head, and the referees didn't even make the call. Oh, man. That was absolutely insane, man. And Mike Dicker was insane. And boy, did Mike Dicker suck. Let me see if I can pull up the photo of how terrible it was. Those years with Danny Waffle there. And he's running around the field with his helmet turned on backwards. That was actually really pathetic. And let me see if I can kind of find it. Helmet backwards. Because that was funny. And let me see if I can pull up the video so I can play it so y'all can to see the kind of nonsense and boobery that we dealt with as Saints fans here. All right, hold on. Let me see if I can share my screen. Let's see if I can pull this one up so y'all can see this hot potato. All right, now this is what happened. Hold on here. Let's see if we can get it right, family. I'm going to share the screen with you. The boobery.
Shannon is using the prescriptive
here. And hold on here. Let me wait for this ad to get the hell out the way. And this is the tape. This is the footage here. Hold on. If I can pull it up. With Danny Waffle. And it didn't. Hold on. That's another tape. Hold on. Define it. But man, was that joke filled. Was that joke filled, man? I tell you what. Hold on here. Let me see if I can back. I'm going to get it. I'm gonna do it and do my best to kind of show y'all what happened when Danny Waffle got his head spit, his helmet turned on. I know it's on here somewhere. I'm going to find it. Let me see. I'm going to find that because I was like, man, that's the epitome of what it was to be a Saints fan. You just would have to do this. You would just have to do that because it's like ridiculous. Matter of fact, here go a photo of it right here. Let me see if I can superimpose it so you can see Danny Awful Waffle with his helmet on backwards. It was absolute boobery. Here it is. Y'all see it here? Here it is right here. I'm going to see if I could get a better shot of it here. You see? The guy sacked him and turned his helmet around. It's backwards on top of his damn head. I'm trying to see if I can buy better. Here go a better shot of it's kind of grainy. But you see that? His helmet backwards on. This is the kind of stuff we had to deal with when you was a Saints fan. This was kind of nonsense you had to deal with. This guy, they didn't get a flag for that or nothing. This dude stumbling around with his helmet. Oh, that's what kind of madness we dealt with. That's what kind of madness we had to deal with, man. Don't talk to me about being a Saints fan. Don't talk to me about being a Saints fan. That's what kind of madness we had to deal with, family. Did you see that buffoonish guy running around there with his helmet turned on his face? That's what we had to deal with. Oh, my goodness. Okay. Joshua says, Q, why don't the Saints hardly draft from LSU or Louisiana in general all the talent that comes out of the boot, and they pass on them nowadays to go after small school guys and Ohio guys? It's just where they choose to pick their fruit, bro. That's the best way I could say, because, oh my goodness, Fred Weary. Yes, I'm weary and leery of Fred Weary. What a garbage dude that was. Fred Weary. Tyrone Hughes, I remember that. Terrell Buckley. Yeah, that was terrible. Sammy Knight was pretty good. I like Sammy. Sammy was a hard hitter. He didn't have much speed, but he'll lay you out once he got his hand on you. Norman Hand, one of my favorites from the Heavy Lunch Bunch. But as far as your question goes, Joshua, I don't know. I just think that they prefer the Ohio State guys, or, and their scouting staff specializes in getting the uncut jewels. And I think the Saints really kind of like going that route. Sometimes you don't have to go after uncut jewels if you got big school stars right there. And when there were a lot of big school guys that were there for the Saints, they just chose to go in different directions. And this year, I really thought, with all of the talent that LSU presented, both offensively and defensively, that the Saints would end up going in the direction of getting a guy from LSU, but they didn't. But they didn't draft the guy, but they did get Adrian McGee, the big-ass offensive lineman from LSU, and Will Clapp is there as well. So they might have not drafted the guy, and sooner or later they'll have to, because the talent level of LSU is going through the roof. And sooner or later they'll be forced to, hopefully, and not let LSU just pick. Atlanta pick all the LSU guys. Yeah, Dante Stallworth, I remember him. Kakaha was a bust. Dale Carter was a good cornerback. They just got him late in his end of his career. I remember Stan Brock. Yeah, I remember Stan. Dante Stallworth killed somebody and ran over somebody and had his license revoked. I remember all that. Josh says, yeah, but remember when Breeze went to Indy and put up 60? 504 says, I jumped through the TV on Aaron Brooks. This man threw the ball back. It's just, I know, it was sad times. Don't tell me about being a Saints man. Leroy Glover was one of my favorite ones. I love Leroy Glover. Joe Johnson and Wayne Martin, guys like that were absolutely terrific. Scoop said any linebacker drafted during the Joe Vitt years was boo-boo. Mark Fields was a hell of a linebacker. I really like Mark Fields. He was good. Winifred Tubbs. I don't know if y'all remember Winifred. Winifred was a good linebacker too. So it's a few guys I can recall that wasn't named guys, but they were productive, that played well. But I remember guys like Mark Fields, who was a really good linebacker on a sucky team. Same thing with Winifred Tubbs too. Let's see. Donald says Sammy Knight would have never left the building. Tom Benson didn't see it that way. Jim Haslett's the coach. Crass says, damn, almost feel sorry for Danny. Yeah, I think you know him, didn't you, bro? Kevin says absolutely 60-plus game. Adada says, y'all remember when Brian Cox came to New Orleans? He was washed up. I remember that's just what we did. We brought in washed up guys hoping to try to bring them, and it just was pathetic. Lee says, Waffle played so badly he wanted to wear a sack but had to wear a helmet. He was terrible, man. He just didn't have the arm to push the ball. He just was the wrong type of quarterback for what they was trying to do. He was really wrong. And that spread offense that they ran in Florida, maybe if they would have took some of those spread principles and put it into the offense when Dicker was there. But Dicker was so screwed up in the head. Jake Carter, I remember Jake, wide receiver, tight end / big guy, used to play for the Vikings. Buford, I remember Big Buford. Buford Jordan, the fullback. Aaron Brooks threw the ball back. Yeah, I remember that one. Sports Talk says the Browns scooped up a lot of LSU players. Yeah, they got Grant Delpit back there and a few other people. Just the Browns, sooner or later, they got to get it right, fam? Sooner or later. Ashley Ambrose. Alex Ambrose. No, it's actually Ashley. Ashley Ambrose, Travis. And Ashley Ambrose was a pretty good cornerback, man, who came over from the Atlanta Falcons. No, he was with the Falcons and the Bengals. And then he came over to the Saints and gave him some good years. Ashley Ambrose was a pretty decent cornerback. Jason David, believe it or not, Jason David was garbage because he was 5'7". He was a 5'7", but he did get interceptions. He was woefully too small for you to be sticking him over there as a starting cornerback. Corey White was pathetic. Usama Young was garbage. Let's see, Brandon Browner. Maybe he would have done better as a safety. I think cornerback was the wrong thing for him to do. He just didn't have the speed. He held everybody, led the league in penalties that year. And a bunch of people, man. Kevin says Gulliver was my roommate, fam, at San Diego State. All right. Yeah, Big Leroy was a good player, man. Donald says Aaron Brooks was a solid, okay, but this team had Dan Marino as their quarterback with Dome Patrol defense. They would have won at least 2 or 3 Super Bowls in the 80s. And a lot of people said that. Michael Haynes, I remember Michael Haynes, Kevin, former Atlanta Hawk, man, used to burn the hell out the Saints. Came to the Saints, couldn't do a damn thing. I remember Hazir Hakeem as well. Yep, I remember him. Lonzo Hill. Yep, remember Zoe Hill. He had speed, but I think his problem was drugs. I think Lonzo Hill had a drug problem. They got him knocked off the Saints. Toy Cook, pathetic. Toy Cook was pathetic. Alex Molden was pathetic. Alex Molden was probably one of the worst cornerbacks the Saints ever had. And I'm adding Toy Cook in there. And Toy Cook used to get burnt, but at least he would get interceptions. Alex Molden didn't know a damn thing. So Molden was pathetic. He's probably my pick to be the worst cornerback. And I'm talking about Fred Thomas, Fred Weary, Usama Young, Corey White, all these guys, he was bored. Alex Molden was a first-round draft pick cornerback, couldn't guard a bed. He couldn't do a damn thing. He was absolutely lost out there. Constantly burned, stealing money all over the place. Nick Toon, I remember Nick Toon didn't do too good either. Joe Morgan would have been on the team, couldn't stay out of trouble. Joe Morgan was a good kick returner, had good speed. The Saints gave him chance after chance, couldn't stay on the team. Robert Massey, I remember him, Robert Massey. Quinn Early was one of my favorites as well, Trail. I remember Quinn. Don't forget about Fred Thomas. I didn't. Jason Kraft was okay. He was all right. He came over from Jacksonville. Mike McKenzie, to me, did okay. But Mike McKenzie used to get burned a lot, too. I remember Jay Bellamy. Jay Bellamy was all right. Willie Rofe is the best. Darren Howard was solid, too. He went on to have a pretty solid career after leaving the Saints. They should never lost him. Will Smith's one of my all-time favorites. Rest in peace to Will and the rest of them. But I remember, man, what's up, Lionel? Who that to you? I see your family. Scoop says Michael Hodges has been given credit for developing DeMario Davis. Do you think he makes an impact? Michael Hodges has been given credit. DeMario Davis, man, I don't know if it says too much about develop, because DeMario Davis is one of them dudes who you can stick in there and it don't matter where he played, he gonna learn it. He got a high foot. DeMario Davis has everything it takes to be a great football player. He has a high football IQ. He's an incredibly hardworking person. He's a down-to-earth, solid individual, and it don't matter where you put him at. You take him and put him in Cleveland, which you know about that. And of course, what he did with the Jets, it don't matter. DeMario Davis is going to step up and he's going to show. And everywhere he did, he was highly productive. I just think, Scoob, that is just naturally what DeMario Davis do. But the credit to the linebacker room is they have a lot of solid veterans too. Besides DeMario Davis, they had A.J. Klein there giving them instruction. Craig Robertson is still there. So these young guys have an opportunity to step up behind those guys like Zach Bowen and Alex Anzalone, who's had a lot of experience. He just couldn't stay healthy. Caden Ellis is there. You got Dowell there. You got Chase and the rest of those young linebackers. They can make a name for themselves. Right now, they step up and start playing and get some athleticism to it. So it's a lot of really good young linebackers that need to step up behind these guys. And DeMario Davis deserves another contract. Dada says Alex Molden was trash. Yeah, I know he was garbage. He was trash. I tell him to his face he was garbage. Solo the Pro Cut King says Mel Gray. I remember that Ultimate Return, man. Mel Gray used to stutter step with them high ass stutter steps. He went up to Detroit and actually turned into a pretty decent player. Adrian Arrington. I remember Adrian Arrington. He played for Michigan. He was opposite of Braylon Edwards. And he was able to catch on down here, but he just wasn't able to really do it. You know what I'm saying? Big Jim Dombrowski, one of the best. Courtney Roby has some skill at a kick return position. Of course, Michael Lewis, Kyle Turley was talented. He just was emotionally unstable. And the like. Iceman, what up, Iceman? Good to see you. And B.W. Webb, I remember B.W. Webb. Don't forget about Randall Gay. Randall Gay was a good slot man. He was a good slot man for the Saints. Came from LSU. Tracy Porter was another local guy. Like Jabari Greer was one of my favorite cornerbacks, and Keenan Lewis got a raw deal. But that Jabari Greer and the Keenan Lewis tandem was something special. They just could not stay healthy. That was the thing that really hurt. Kenny Vaccaro was special in his first year. He was so special in his first year with the Saints. They had them. The league was calling him a bigger version of Earl Thomas, because that's what they expected him. The talk was Kenny Vaccaro was supposed to be a bigger version of Earl Thomas. Of course, that didn't work out that way, because the second and third year he regressed and leaving lost his confidence, and then ultimately led to him getting traded. But the Saints screwed his development up. They were moving people around. They were just insane at that time. Let's see. DeMario says a good player before he landed in New Orleans, just a good player. He's a very good linebacker before he landed in New Orleans, just a good player. He is DeMario Davis is, go look at his statistics. He's productive everywhere he goes. And I think if you give him the opportunity to play, he'll show you what time it is. He's just a solid player. Travis says DeMario will be in his prime for how much longer? Maybe another year or two, possibly. Perhaps that's what the Saints are taking their time and thinking about giving him an extension, because they don't think he can maintain that high level of play. But another 2-year deal for DeMario Davis, I would even say that I trust DeMario can keep up that high play for at least an additional 2 years. His work ethic alone, the fact that he knows the team, he's such a positive influence. But you never know with the money types. They might figure it's a better and cheaper option to draft a guy and put him there as opposed to keep DeMario. You never know what the brain trust is thinking. And I use the term brain trust loosely. Kevin says DeMario father's a military man and the military babes can adopt and conquer. Good comment, Kevin. Scoop says Nolan gave a lot of respect and Leland to Coach Hodges to develop his linebackers. Yeah, I know about him, Scoob. I know you're talking about. Yeah, the dude is that wasn't a bad choice by Coach Payton to go with that man, to be honest with you, because it's keeping the culture and the familiarity of the guys, the system in place, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, Glenn, who that to you? Danny Brandon would say, I remember him. Great Saints from back in the day. Yeah, Kevin, Tyrone Hughes, I remember Tyrone. Donald says Vaccaro was good, but not better than Vine or Malcolm Jenkins. Solo says, what do you think about Bro's comments on Peyton? We covered that a few shows back. If you feel free to go listen to it. Solo. Very staggering, damaging comments on Sean Payton, but that ain't like I didn't know that. I mean, if you listen to my commentary on Sean Payton, and you be like, damn, Q, you a Saints fan? Hell yeah, I'm a Saints fan. But I'm going to keep it real on my team, though. I'm not going to sit up here and block up here and stand here and hold back no corruption and no garbageness. I don't play that. You know, that's like you won't stand next to people doing wrong. Or you know, you're going to call them out. And I do the same thing. And I expect you to do that. Call their asses out. And I call Sean Payton out. I love my coach. But at the same time, that's why I care about my coach. I'm going to call him out. And what he was doing with Delvin Breaux, that was absolutely wrong, because Delvin Breaux is from the city. You could tell in this interview. And you can feel free to listen to it. Go back and listen to the show. We did it. It was a middle of the week show we covered with Delvin Breaux. We played a significant chunk of the interview, and I gave my analysis on it. So when you get done, Solo, just look it up in the rest of the catalog there, and you'll hear it. Go back and listen to it. It was a pretty fun show. Even had a reaction story. It was a part 1, part 2, and a part 3. Because the stream broke up and I cut it into 3 parts. The first part was the interview. The second part was, the first part was the interview from Delvin Breaux with analysis. The second and third parts was reaction, because I took calls about it. So that's pretty much what it is. Sport Talk 365, who that fam says, if DeMario has a down year, Peyton will make the same comments he made about Larry Warford around the draft next. You're absolutely right, bro. Despite the fact that DeMario Davis, and you called it, and I said, if they can do that, and listen to them, just look at the mindset. We could talk about money all we want. And you can justify, if you really needed money that bad, like Bob said, cutting Nick Eason gun. He's $5 million off the bench. How do you, if you need money that bad, why didn't you release Nick Eason? Huh? Why didn't you just simply release Nick Eason? You know, what's the deal with all that? But they said that he won't take a cut. But the reality is you could either trade him and nobody wanted him, and you could have actually waited to next year to make that move. But this guy was a 3-time Pro Bowler for the 3 years he's been here. And then you say, oh, no, we need the money. We're going to get rid of him. We're going to cut his ass. But what about Nick Eason, who you can get $5 or $6 million from? You're going to cut the Pro Bowler over the backup? It just depends on your perspective and what it is. Yeah, Jamal Brown. I remember Jamal Brown. Big defensive tackle, Jamal Brown. Yep. Ken Stabler says, Glenn. Yeah. Andre Royal, Paul says. Andre Royal. Yes, indeed. Y'all going back in the day. Way back. Dada says, remember when we bought in Brad Muster? Yep, the big slow-ass fullback from the Bears. That was Dicker's guy. Brung Muster in here as well. Slade says 4K. Yeah, we talk about him. Wesley Carroll, says Paul. Yep, wide receiver Wesley Carroll. Never amounted to nothing. Big Wesley Carroll. I remember all that, man. All these guys. 30-plus years of Saints you're looking at here. Big Cat says Carl Nix was a beast. Yep, Carl Nix was a beast. Too bad he couldn't stay healthy down here. That was his issue. Donald says Stephon Anthony was a good player, but the Saints gave up on him and did wrong with James Laurinaitis. Yeah, James Laurinaitis, his days was behind him. That was a bad move. Stephon Anthony, Stan Brock, I remember Stan. Stephon Anthony was a good player. They took him out of Clemson. He was a guy that was a 6'4", 6'4" inside linebacker who could play the run and the pass. And that first year he played for the Saints, he broke Ricky Jackson's rookie tackle record. That's how good Stephon Anthony was. And then the Saints mishandled him. He lost his confidence, ultimately ended up getting out of the team. But the Saints did that not only with him, but they did that with several other players that was on his team, including Big Hicks that's out there in Chicago. None of those guys was supposed to go nowhere. The Saints was transitioning from 3-4 to 4-3, and those guys that they got rid of did not fit Dennis Allen's system. Remember, when it was still ran by Ryan, who was the brother of Rex. It was Rex Ryan. Not Rex Ryan. It was it was one of the Ryans boys, the crazy one with the long hair, who was running the damn defense. Remember that? And then he was doing bad in his second or third year. I think his third year. They brought Dennis Allen in as a special assistant. And I told people then they're going to get ready to get Ryan out of here. What happened after that is they ran him out because every time the defense broke down, you had Sean Payton looking at him with an angry look. Giving him an Adrian Peterson look, how Peterson used to give Sean Payton ass that look. Used to mean mug him. And that's unprofessional. You don't mean mug your coach in front of the people, man. You don't do that, man. You don't need to do that, man. You know, but it's just that's how he ran his team. And ultimately they got rid of Ryan, and then they brought in Dennis Allen as the coach, and they went from a 3-4 to 4-3. And certain players that fit in Ryan's scheme did not fit in Dennis Allen's scheme, including Keenan Lewis and several other players that were pivotal. And y'all remember Chip Lowmiller, the punter, and Ronaldo Turnbull, number 97. He was on that Dome Patrol defense. He came in off the bench. He was on the other side of Pat Swilling on the other side. I remember a lot of these. Jerome Payton. Yeah, I remember Jerome Payton started the slot. Rob Ryan. There you go. Thank you, 8-Board Zach. John Turner. Appreciate you there, family. Good to see you as well. Iceman says, hey, Q, why does it seem like guys have to leave the team to get better? People like Malcolm, Mark, and Hicks. Why do we develop talent then drive them out the door? During that period of time, when you talk about some of those players with Hicks and all those, they were transitioning from one defense to another, from one coach philosophy to another coach. Some coaches feel like some players don't fit their scheme. They can't do nothing with them. And that's sometimes they get the shaft. That's what happens. And then you got other coaches who don't do a good job of developing this talent where they belong. Like you have Bill Johnson, who was here, and Joe Vitt, and those guys were just sucking up air. They wasn't doing a good job in developing those guys, because notice the moment they got them old foogies out of here and they put some fresh guys who know what they're doing, you see the production from the defensive line and linebacker and secondary step up. So a lot of that is instruction. And if you got a coach that know what he's doing, he can get the most out of his players. And then at that time, a lot of those coaches wasn't shit, and I'm just going to keep it real with you. Iceman says, you have to mean mug Sean Q. It's the only way he listens. Well, Peterson did it to him. He liked to do it to people. He did it to Rob Ryan. He did it to the special teams coordinators that were here before you picked up this guy from last year. He did it to Bradford Banter. Remember he did it to Bradford Banter? Was mean mugging him? He does that. That's unprofessional. You don't mean mug your coaches in front of that undermines them. You don't do that. Because you damn sure don't want nobody mean mugging your ass. You ain't like it when Adrian Peterson was doing it, and then you traded him. But you told him that you was going to get. That's why it was mean. That's why I'm saying, man, a lot of this shit you just can't hang. Cedric Mack. I remember Cedric Mack, safety. Daryl Hobbs, Randall Hill. Yep. Nick Fairley. Yep. Iceman, say your opinion. Has Drew and Peyton tandem overachieved in their tenure? I don't say overachieved. This is what it's supposed to be. I think they kind of bit of underachieved, if you ask me, because they should have more than one Super Bowl based upon how well Drew has played and the offense has played in a bit. So I would say they underachieved a bit, because one Super Bowl, because Buddy Delaberto, who's an old school radio man, said that the Saints would not win a Super Bowl in my lifetime. And he was right. He died and then they won the Super Bowl. But they should have had more. Yep, Von Dunbar. I remember Von Dunbar. Boy, was he a terrible ass running back. Boy, Von Dunbar sucked. I think he was a running back from Indiana University. Dude could not find a hole to save his life. Would run into the back of his own. I was like, what does this dude freaking blind? Does he need bifocals? Von Dunbar was awful. Let's see. But yeah, to get back to your question on that, about that, I think it was Iron Man. So I think that Iceman, they underachieved in my opinion, because they didn't get more than that one Super Bowl. With all the success the offense have had and the records Drew done broke, after all those years, you mean to tell me you only have one Super Bowl? That underachieves to me. And the reason for that is because you didn't do enough to upgrade the defense, and the defense really just came online the last 5 or 6 years. Think about that. In the 20-something years Drew's been here, the defense just coming online, 5 or 6 years? Until they really started getting into the top 10, top 15 to the top 10, where they was supposed to be. It took them years to get the defense right. And that's why I'm saying the offense couldn't win it by itself. And when the defense became and got online during the Super Bowl year back in 2009, and they started getting turnovers and sacks and everything, that helped the team. But after that happened and the bounty gate and all that, the defense fell into a lull and they weren't able to get it back up to the level where it was during the Super Bowl year. And that suffered the offense. The special teams couldn't kick return that well, and it just went down. So you had a half of a team, and they finally built the team up to a position where the defense is playing championship style. The offense is there. The special teams is there. That's why people got their expectations way up here, because the Saints are selling everywhere. They have top-notch instruction from coaches everywhere along the team and talent to go along with it. That's why they're considered a Super Bowl tops. Lewis Lips, good grief. The kick returner, Lewis Lips. The Saints did have Lewis Lips, former Pittsburgh Steelers kick returner. Down here for a little bit, couldn't do a damn thing for him. Yeah, I remember Mario Bates-Clint. Okay, John Turner says the defense was horrible for like 5 years straight, the worst. That's what I'm saying. The defense did not help the offense. It was just, that's on the coach. You got to fix the defense. Even if you have the money to go out and get a pass rusher who can test some shit up, or, most coaches know, or to have a solid defense, you got to build up the center of the defense. I mean, getting a top-notch defensive tackle you can't rush on, or solving that middle where you can't run up the middle, having a top-notch linebacker who can play at the second level, and a safety. That's how they know building is solid. That's the method of how the Pittsburgh Steelers has done it for years. Building solid up the defense. The Saints didn't do that. it just killed them. The pressure, you had to be able to get pressure on the quarterback, and that's just something that they didn't do. That's why I'm saying if a guy like Everson Griffin's out there and he gets you fall on his back and get 8 sacks a year for you, and then you Davenport off there, I mean, it's a no-brainer to me. Yeah, I remember Gil Finnerty. I mentioned him, Paul. All right. Let's see. Truly, I remember doing that. Joe Horn. Joe Horn was my Hollywood Horn and his crazy end zone dances. Sports Talk should have been 3 at least. I'm telling you. So in my opinion, Iceman, they underachieved as a duo because it's supposed to be multiple Super Bowls. Multiple. The last couple of years, most certainly supposed to be Super Bowls. You're supposed to beat the Rams. That'll put you in the Super Bowl against the Patriots. And last year, you should have went all the way through. That'll put you in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. So at least 2 or 3, at least 3 Super Bowls. The man been playing for 20 goddamn years. And I'm talking about Drew Brees. It took him 20 years to take all them records down. Why you only have 1 Super Bowl to account for that? And he's a great, look at Joe Montana, had 4 of them. You know? And it just baffles me. It does. Yeah, y'all are throwbacks. But look, I'd like to thank all of y'all for joining the show today. Thank y'all. It was a fantastic show. Milton Mack, good grief. Milton Mack. I remember old Milton Mack. Paul bringing them all out. But I'd like to thank all the family members for joining the live stream today, man. We had a ball, man. I'd like to thank Bob Rose and the entire crew over there at the Saints News Network for doing it. Brother Kyle Mosley and the rest of them out there doing terrific work. Much love to Bob Rose, man. He's a terrific wealth of information on the Saints. And I thank him for having time at his family time with his family at home. And he was nice enough to call in and drop some knowledge on the family. So once again, thank Bob and the Saints News Network family, and also the Canal Street Chronicles family and the Sports Illustrated Saints family over there for doing a terrific job in with the Saints information and news and bringing it to the Saints family out here. So I like to thank all that great work that those guys are doing. And to keep it real with you, man, it was absolutely a ball today with the family members. I thank our callers for calling in. And I hope you learned something and you was entertained today. So as always, man, I give a shout out to all the family members, and feel free to go to the Pro Shop. The Pro Shop is the official store of the PRO Media Network and the Sports Coma. And right now we're running a special where you can get 15% off on we got over 35 different designs available: coffee mugs, teas, smartphone cover cases, all kind of stuff, man. Literally hundreds of dozens of products are available at the Pro Shop. The link is in the description section below with the product code Stay Strong, one word, lowercase letters, Stay Strong. In the checkout section, when you get ready to check out, put that code in, you get 15%. And Teespring right now is giving you 10% if you sign up to get the alerts. So you can get 25% off at the Pro Shop right now if you hop on and go and check it out. So it's a lot of great merchandise going on down there. And I'm gonna see if I can spend latest. This is some of the ads. This is an ad, a recently made ad that the team came up with for some of the shirts that's out there right now. These are some of the last designs that we have. Remember, it's over 30 something different designs. We constantly coming out with gear. This was the latest of the gears. You can see is the Drew Brees gear. I was spent on the Drew Brees gear, the Great Saints Think Tank shirt. God is a Saints fan. This is the second or third version of it, I think. You can see it in gold right there. All colors, all sizes are available now at the Pro Shop. That's the new Drew Orleans shirt with the Florida Leafs in between the letters. Really nice shirt. That's the built Drew Orleans tough shirt. All colors, all sizes, men, women, children, in it, everything is available. Even coffee mugs, posters, the Great Saints Think Tank tee is in the building as well. All colors, sizes, all that. Pro Shop, check it out. And check it out. Like I said, product code is Stay Strong. Get your 15% off. The Pro Media Network. Also, if you want to listen to the live streams of the show, you can feel free to go to the audio versions of the show is the audio formats that are available on Spreaker.com/the PRO media. Spreaker.com/the Sports Coma is available at Pro Radio. Audio feeds of everything is available at Pro Radio. Link is in the description section below. And also, if you really appreciate the platform and you love the work we're doing, feel free to join up at patreon.com/the PRO Media Network and get the latest content, unreleased content. We do a show that's only available on Patreon, the Sports Coma, which is the TSC Q&A Live, which is only for Patreon. It's another Sports Coma. We talk Saints, but it's on the Patreon. That's how it's set up. And also unreleased shows such as On Q with Big Q, which is a show we talk about sports entertainment and events that's happening today. So if you're interested in helping the show, join patreon.com/the PRO Media Network. Much love to all my Patreon champions and all my members who joined the YouTube members. Much love and thank you guys for your fantastic support as we continue to move forward and ratchet things up. And like I said, we got a lot of stuff going on at the PRO Media Network, coffee mugs, all this kind of stuff. But the last, I'm going to spin this one more time. This is some of the last designs that we had created. We got several new designs coming online real soon. So just to let the family members know, I appreciate y'all, man. Thank y'all for all y'all do. And remember to stay safe out there. Stay safe and keep your heads up. Stay critical thinking. Share. If you're not a subscriber, hit the subscribe button. Before you leave, hit the like button. We had a fantastic show today. And we also released another video covering the Ty Montgomery signing. That's available. That's out there as well. We have more videos coming and ratcheting up the work, family. Because of your donations and the fact that you guys are bringing it, we got to bring it. So we are bringing it. So I thank you guys. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all for all that y'all do. We'll see y'all later. Enjoy the screens. Remember, do your boy a favor here at the PRO Media Network and Big Q. If you belong to any Saints groups on Facebook, you have my permission to take the show's link and share it in all and any Facebook groups that you belong to. Hell, if you belong to 30 or 40 of them, I don't care. Take the link and share it. That helps out exponentially as well, in that way. Because I know it's tight out here right now. If you can't do that, then share the links. That's that's next to nothing. So thank y'all. I love y'all. Appreciate y'all, man. Y'all be safe out there. Who that to you?
Yeah. Well, all right. Like you always say, welcome, welcome, welcome. Number one sports talking D. We ain't like the Falcons. We won't blow the lead. Look, all we talk is who that, who got cut and who back. Rookies in the vets, players you should look at. It's the Sports Coma, you don't wanna miss it. Got the pre-game, party, post-game statistics. Get a visit from Sway, maybe DC or 5. It's the hottest thing smoking, Big Q and the guys. Go to YouTube Live, make sure you subscribe. Interviews inside the Saints locker room high. Talk to Drew, Jordan, Zach, Peyton, New Orleans, who that nation. Best believe when I say we bleed gold and black. Ain't a miracle or rivalry could ever hold us back. No, Beastquake, Bounty Gate, let the truth be told. It's the Sports Coma, all we know is say Super Bowl. Yeah.